Chapter 158. Ancient Cavern. Chen Sheng and Wang Yuanqing were really killed by Zhuowen alone. Wang Yuanqing's cultivation is at the initial human king realm. How could someone like him be killed? Gu Tian picked his ears again. His eyes suddenly bulged as he looked at Gu Lai and asked. Gu Lai laughed bitterly. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "This is absolutely true." Even Lu Qingshang, who was at the profound human king realm, was killed by Zhuowen when he was fighting against the Zhuo family, let alone Wang Yuanqing, who was at the initial human king realm. Zhuowen seems to have had some fortuitous encounters. His cultivation base is not high, but his methods are extremely strange. Lingjiu and the other two had also heard it clearly. They were not unfamiliar with the Zhuowen that Gu Lai had mentioned. Wasn't he the disciple with high-grade mental energy talent that Sang Mu had mentioned earlier? From what Sang Mu had said, his disciple, Zhuowen, was only 15 or 16 years old. Could it be that a young man like him was strong enough to defeat a great perfection human king? Only those in the perfection of the human king realm or even the earth king realm could kill a great accomplishment of the human king realm. Could it be that there was such a young earth king realm expert in Rattan Armor City? They had never heard of such a young Earth King realm martial artist. No matter how heaven-defying a genius was, it was impossible to reach the Earth King realm at the age of 15 or 16. Hearing such strange news, the three of them were stunned. Perhaps even the most talented genius in the house of Marquis Qin wouldn't be able to reach the Earth King stage at such a young age. However, Gu Lai's next sentence immediately caused the place to become silent once again. Moreover, Zhuowen's mental energy seems to have reached grade 2. Back then, when he fought with Chen Sheng, he revealed his powerful mental energy. Even Chen Sheng could not deal with that kind of mental energy. Clearly, he has reached grade 2. A 16-year-old grade 2 Arcana Master. The 9th Commandery Princess covered her mouth and muttered to herself in disbelief. Immediately, the three of them turned their heads tacitly and looked at Master Sang Mu, who was also in a daze. Feeling Lingjiu, the 9th Commandery Princess and Su Chang's gaze, Master Sang Mu smiled bitterly and spread his hands to show that he was not clear. However, his heart was violently shaken by Gu Lai's news. He remembered that Zhuowen had only tempered his mental energy for less than a year. In such a short period of time, his mental energy had already reached grade 2. Wasn't this speed and talent a little terrifying? After Master Sang Mu, the 9 Commandery Princess, the 9th Commandery Princess 9 Commandery 9 Commandery Young 9 Commandery's eyes. The 9th Commandery Princess's beautiful eyes were full of curiosity. She was more and more interested in the young man whom she had never met before. In the God's Stone Square, the Zhuo family's people were mixed in with the huge crowd. Looking at the arrogant 9th Commandery Princess and the respectful Gu Tian in the square, Zhuowen realized that the three people who had suddenly appeared were probably the people from the house of Marquis Qin that Zhuo Xiangding had mentioned. However, he was puzzled. What was so special about this small Rattan Armor City that attracted the three of them to come here? In the main hall of the governor's mansion, Lingjiu, the 9th Commandery Princess, and Su Chang were treated as VIPs and sat in the main seats. Gu Tian, Gu Lai, and Sang Mu sat in the lower seats. Governor Gu, you should know why we are here. So, I will not beat around the bush. Let's get straight to the point. The 9th Commandery Princess, who was sitting in the highest seat, said with a straight face. I would like to hear the details. I only have a smattering of knowledge and hope that Princess will be able to dispel my doubts. Gu Tian cupped his fists and said in a rather meticulous manner. Rattan Armor City is located above the Annihilation Forest. In the Annihilation Forest, there is a dangerous place called the Heaven's Fiend Dark Eye. You should all know this. The 9th Commandery Princess paused and glanced at the people in the hall. Then she spoke again. Father, a month ago, he sensed that the Heavenly Fiend Dark Eye was rioting. Although he didn't know who caused this rioting, it was this rioting that caused the power of the Heavenly Fiend Dark Eye to weaken by a lot. Due to the weakening of its power, the trace of restriction power within was detected by Lord Father. Thus, Father followed this trace of restriction power and used the limitless heaven and earth secret technique to discover that there was actually an ancient cave dwelling within the heaven fiend Dark Eye. As soon as the 9th Commandery Princess finished her words, Guyua Tian and the other 2 people in the main hall suddenly trembled. Ancient cave dwelling? They did not expect that there was an ancient cave dwelling in the heavens fiend Dark Eye. There were records in ancient books. 10,000 years ago, there were many sects and geniuses everywhere in the heavenly armor continent. There were countless sages among them. Now, there were only a few sages and even some divine-level experts in the divine transformation realm. However, there were vague records in the ancient books. 10,000 years ago, there seemed to have been an earth-shattering catastrophe. As for the details of the catastrophe, it was exceptionally vague. However, after the catastrophe, the entire heavenly armor continent had declined. Countless sages had fallen in the catastrophe 10,000 years ago. Countless emperors and marquises had disappeared in the river of time. It was this catastrophe that had caused the martial arts of the entire heavenly armor continent to decline to this extent. Now, even sages were elusive. Therefore, the later generations called the era 10,000 years ago the ancient era, and the era from 10,000 years ago to the present was called the modern era. Almost every warrior in the ancient era had extremely powerful strength. It was said that the strength of their bodies was comparable to that of the powerful meta beasts. They were blessed by nature. Compared to warriors of the same level, warriors from the ancient era were much stronger than warriors from the modern era. The ancient cave dwellings were mansions opened by the strongest warriors in the ancient era. It was said that these mansions were created by the strong warriors from the ancient era. They used the power of space to open up a space in the void and used it as a place for their own cultivation. Spiritual herbs, spiritual treasures, secret techniques, armor techniques, and many other resources could be found in the cave dwellings. If a warrior only needed to get a few of them, it could be said to be a great adventure. In the Qing Xian Empire, there had been a warrior with mediocre aptitude and ordinary cultivation who had accidentally obtained the secret treasures of the cave dwellings. In a short period of time, his cultivation had broken through repeatedly. His cultivation speed had almost surpassed that of a group of geniuses. From then on, he became the most dazzling young warrior in the entire empire. Such legends were innumerable in the Qing Xian Empire and even the entire eastern lands. It was these legends that caused everyone to scramble for the ancient cave dwelling. However, most of the ancient cave dwellings were located in independent spaces. Moreover, the outside of the ancient cave dwellings were concealed by restrictive spells. Therefore, finding one was like finding a needle in a haystack. Now, there was actually an ancient cave dwelling in the vicinity of Rattan Armor City. Even Guyu Tian and Sung Mu were shocked. Their eyes were filled with shock. However, after the shock, a trace of joy appeared on their faces. If the news about the ancient cave dwelling was true, then they would have a chance to enter the cave dwelling. If they were lucky, they might even be able to obtain some benefits from it. However, you don't have to be happy too early. There is a layer of restrictive spells outside the ancient cave dwelling. According to my father's estimation, that layer of restrictive spells can only be broken by the strength of an ultimate Emperor Realm warrior. Or perhaps, 3-peak Heavenly King Realm warriors can also break the restrictive spells of the ancient cave dwelling. The 9th Commandery Princess also noticed the strange expressions on the faces of Guyu Tian and the others. She laughed coldly and sneered. Guyu Tian was taken aback. Soon after, he gave a dry laugh as he scratched his head. Following which, he remained silent. He knew that as the governor of a small low-grade city, he did not have the slightest authority to speak in front of the 3 of them. However, you can rest assured that if the restrictive spells of the ancient cave dwelling are broken, no one will stop you from entering. Moreover, my father has already estimated that the ancient cave dwelling in the eyes of Tian Sha Ming should be a deserted ancient cave dwelling. The resources inside should not be as abundant as imagined. Therefore, the ancient cave dwelling will be used as a training ground for the younger warriors of the Marquis residence. The experts of the older generation will not interfere. Next, Marquis Muqin, Marquis Baichuan, and Marquis Yongsheng will send people over again. Other than the 3 marquises of the commandery capital, some other forces may send people over as well. Therefore, Rotten Armor City will be very lively for a period of time. Therefore, Governor Gu, please make more preparations. The 9th commandery princess cast a sidelong glance at Gu Yutian. Her pretty face revealed a trace of arrogance as she spoke calmly. Don't worry, commandery princess. I will arrange everything well. Gu Yutian clasped his hands and said respectfully. The 9th commandery princess nodded slightly. After a few more words, she left the hall with Lingjiu and Su Chang. Under Gu Lai's lead, they went to the rooms that had been arranged for them to rest. Looking at the backs of the 9th commandery princess and the other 2, Gu Yutian's face revealed a thoughtful expression. Finally, he sighed softly and said to himself, it seems that Rotten Armor City will not be peaceful soon. I really did not expect that an ancient cave dwelling would appear in the Annihilation Forest. I really don't know if this is our luck or our misfortune. Now, we can only take one step at a time. After all, this involves the forces of the 3 marquises of the commandery capital. This is not something that we can interfere with. As long as we don't make any moves, we will not get into big trouble. Master Kuraki gently patted Gu Yutian's shoulder and said with a sigh. Just as the 2 of them fell into silence, a servant came in from outside the hall. He knelt down and said respectfully, Sir, young Master Zhuowen wishes to see you. Zhuowen? Let him in quickly. Gu Yutian and Master Kuraki looked at each other and said hurriedly. Chapter 159. Academy of Fine Arts. At the entrance of the hall, a slender figure of a young man slowly walked into the hall. His delicate face was expressionless. Zhuowen greets the city lord and Master Tsang Mu. Kneeling on one knee, Zhuowen bowed slightly and said with a slightly respectful tone. The moment Zhuowen entered the hall, Grand Master Tsang Mu, who was seated on his seat, appeared in front of Zhuowen in a flash. Then, he gently extended his right hand and placed it on Zhuowen's forehead. At the same time, a tidal wave of mental energy suddenly erupted in the hall. Soon after, it spread throughout the entire hall. In an instant, the entire hall fell into a thick pressure. This spiritual power. Sure enough, he had reached the 2nd rank. Zhuowen, how did you cultivate your spiritual power? How did he advance so quickly? Master Kuraki's hands trembled as he gently helped Zhuowen up. His lips trembled as he spoke emotionally. Gu Yutian also sensed the sudden appearance of a strong mental strength in the hall. The strength of this mental strength was indeed at the level of a rank 2 martial artist. Although he had already heard from Gu Lai that Zhuowen's mental energy had indeed reached rank 2, his heart still trembled violently when he saw it with his own eyes. Everyone knew that the cultivation of mental strength was much more difficult than the cultivation of martial arts. However, the young man in front of him had completely defied common sense. His progress in mental strength was much faster than that of martial arts. Zhuowen scratched his head and smiled shyly. He lowered his head and said, Actually, I don't know why my spiritual power improved so quickly. I just followed the method you gave me, and as I practiced, I broke through. As for the reason, I don't know. Zhuowen shrugged with an innocent smile on his face, as if he was completely ignorant of the situation. The reason why Zhuowen's spiritual power had advanced so quickly was naturally due to the help of the tyrannical blood and the ice-fire holy symbol. However, these 2 were secrets that would make people jealous, so Zhuowen naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to tell them everything. He just attributed it to an unintentional breakthrough. You broke through while practicing? When Master Kuraki and Gu Yutian heard this, the corners of their eyes involuntarily twitched a few times. In the end, the 2 of them could only helplessly sigh. At the same time, they defined Zhuowen in their hearts. This young man in front of them was simply a monster. He was a guy who could not be judged by common sense. Zhuowen, you came to the city lord's mansion because you have something to ask of me, right? If there's anything you need, just say it. As long as I can do it, I'll do my best to satisfy you. Guyu Tian was, after all, the lord of a city. His ability to read people's expressions was top-notch. He could see that the young man in front of him was worried. It was obvious that he had something to ask of him. As for the reason why Guyu Tian was so forthright, it was because he saw the potential in Zhuowen's body. To be able to become a grade 2 Arcana Master at such a young age, and to be able to defeat a human king realm cultivator by himself, if he didn't have a good relationship with such a young talent, it could only be said that Guyu Tian's brain was flooded with water. Looking at Guyu Tian's bright smile in front of him, Zhuowen's heart felt warm. Although he knew that Guyu Tian's enthusiasm was very likely related to his previous shocking actions, he didn't believe that with the City Lord's Mansion's intelligence network, he wouldn't be unaware of the dispute between the Zhuo family, the Wang family, and the Qin family. However, before this, Guyu Tian had given him a lot of help, so he remembered this kindness in his heart. Then it's better to accept deferentially than to decline courteously. Actually, my request is very simple. I just wanted to ask about the excellent Divine Academy. Do you know anything about it? Zhuowen scratched his head and said somewhat embarrassedly. Excellent Divine Academy? Grandmaster Kuraki and Guyu Tian looked at each other, revealing a strange expression as they spoke in unison. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Zhuowen was a little curious about Guyu Tian and Grandmaster Kuraki's expressions. Zhuowen, why are you asking about the excellent Divine Academy? Also, where did you hear about the excellent Divine Academy from? Grandmaster Kuraki, who had been silent, suddenly opened his mouth. Zhuowen was startled, and could only casually make up a lie, saying that he had accidentally heard about it and was just curious. Grandmaster Kuraki and Guyu Tian didn't suspect anything. Actually, it's not a big deal. The excellent Divine Academy is also a power in the Eastern Lands, but it's also considered a huge existence in the Eastern Lands. It's the second largest power in the Eastern Lands, and its strength is only below the Blue Dragon Hall. However, it's said that the excellent Divine Academy's overall strength isn't inferior to the Blue Dragon Hall, but their high-end strength is a little weaker. That's why they're below the Blue Dragon Hall. Guyu Tian rubbed his chin and said with a solemn expression. Zhuowen was shocked. He didn't think that the excellent Divine Academy's strength would be so strong. Their overall strength was actually not inferior to the Blue Dragon Hall. This was something he hadn't expected. Then, if I want to join the excellent Divine Academy, what are the conditions? Zhuowen asked cautiously, but his heart was fiercely clenched. He had to join the excellent Divine Academy. Not to mention the huge amount of resources, just the fact that they had the Holy Ice Fire Talisman was enough to force Zhuowen to join the excellent Divine Academy. After all, after experiencing the might of the Holy Ice Fire Talisman, Zhuowen definitely wouldn't give up on such a powerful method. Join the excellent Divine Academy? Zhuowen, you intend to join the excellent Divine Academy? Guyu Tian's gaze was once again filled with shock as he stared at the quiet youth in front of him. He couldn't help but ask in a sharp voice. Even Master Kuraki's face was filled with shock. Is there a problem? Zhuowen's heart skipped a beat, but he still braced himself and asked. From Guyu Tian's expression, he could tell that the conditions to join the excellent Divine Academy were very high. Otherwise, he wouldn't have revealed such a constipated expression. There's a huge problem. Zhuowen, I'll tell you the truth. The excellent Divine Academy is the second largest power in the Eastern Lands, and the conditions to join are extremely harsh. The most basic condition is to obtain the strength of a marquis before the age of 30. In other words, you have to reach the ultimate Emperor realm before the age of 30, and this is the lowest requirement. Apart from that, there's also an entrance examination. Even if you meet the most basic conditions, if you don't pass the entrance examination, you still won't be able to enter the excellent Divine Academy. Now, you can imagine how difficult it is to enter the excellent Divine Academy. When Zhuowen heard this, he was momentarily stunned. He wanted to curse out loud. Weren't the conditions to enter the excellent Divine Academy a little too perverted? The most basic condition was to reach the ultimate emperor realm before the age of 30. This kind of cultivator would be considered a super genius in the Qing Xian Empire, but in the excellent Divine Academy, they were the lowest of the low. Thinking about the perverted conditions of the excellent Divine Academy, even Zhuowen felt a trace of helplessness in his heart. Was this even a condition that a human could pass? Looking at the defeated expression on the youth's face, Master Kuraki sighed and said, "The excellent Divine Academy is a colossus, and it's not something that we can climb up to. Even in the entire Qing Xian Empire, there aren't many who have the qualifications to enter the excellent Divine Academy. Even if there are, most of them would have been eliminated in the entrance examination. Zhuowen, your talent is already considered very high. I believe that if you slowly develop, you will definitely be able to become one of the top experts in the entire Qing Xian Empire. As for the excellent Divine Academy and the other superpowers of the Eastern lands, they are simply too far away from us." Clenching his fist, Zhuowen's gaze instantly became resolute. He looked seriously at Master Kuraki and Guyu Tian and said with a faint smile, "Actually, it's not that the excellent Divine Academy is too far away from us, but that we have set our own position too low. If an ant sets its own position as an ant from the start, then the ant will eventually fade into the crowd. However, if this ant sets its goal as an elephant, then it might be able to create the miracle of many ants biting an elephant to death. And my goal is the elephant that is the excellent Divine Academy. Whether it's throwing an egg against a rock, or overestimating my own strength, having a goal is always better than having no goal. Who knows, maybe I might be able to create a miracle in the end." As he spoke up to hear, Zhuowen's back abruptly straightened as an invisible aura filled the entire hall. It was an aura of confidence within determination. Just as he finished speaking, the hall fell into silence. Master Kuraki and Guyu Tian both stared blankly at the figure of an unyielding youth with a straight back. They also did not expect that after the youth heard about the harsh conditions of the excellent Divine Academy, not only was he not discouraged, but he became even more confident and unyielding. The formless aura of the youth had deeply infected the two people in front of him. They finally understood why the youth in front of them was able to exceed their expectations time and time again, turning the impossible into a possibility. It was because the youth had an unyielding heart and a determination to press forward courageously. "What you said is really not bad. I really didn't expect that you would be able to say something so philosophical even though you look like a teenager who is still wet behind the ears." A crisp voice slowly rang out from the hall. Soon after, a beautiful figure slowly walked in from outside the hall. The 9th Commandery Princess. Master Kuraki and Guyu Tian also noticed the sudden appearance of the beautiful figure. When the two of them saw the face of the person who had just walked in, they were both shocked and respectful. A bell-like laughter slowly rang out. The 9th Commandery Princess's bright eyes slightly curved into the shape of a crescent moon. Her somewhat sly gaze directly bypassed Master Kuraki and Guyu Tian and stopped directly on the youth's figure in the middle of the hall. Zhuowen was also attracted by the laughter. When he stared at the girl in the green dress who had suddenly appeared in the hall, his gaze suddenly became sluggish. The girl in front of him had skin whiter than snow, and her eyes were like a pool of clear water. When she looked around, she had an elegant and noble temperament that made people feel ashamed of their inferiority and did not dare to profane her. However, in that pair of breathtaking beautiful eyes, there was always a trace of slyness that could not be concealed, which added a sense of spirituality to the girl in front of him. When he first saw the girl in front of him, Zhuowen could not help but be attracted by her appearance and temperament. There was a moment of absent-mindedness, but he quickly regained his composure. Chapter 160. 9th Commandery Princess, you must be Zhuowen. I heard that you're already a second-rank arcana master. You look about the same age as me, but you're already a second-rank arcana master. Looks like you're quite talented. If I say that I have a way for you to get a place in the Divine Academy, how will you repay me? The ninth commandery princess rested her chin on her hand. Her slender fingers stroked her chin slowly. Her bright eyes rolled around as she said with a charming smile. You are able to help me obtain a place to enroll in the Divine Academy? Zhuowen was taken aback. Soon after, he asked in disbelief. Zhuowen did not dare to underestimate the girl in front of him. From his conversation with Guyu Tian, he knew that there were 3 nobles in Rattan Armor City. One of them was the 9th daughter of Marquis Mu Qin. Her name was Lv Jingying, commonly known as the 9th commandery princess. From the way Guyu Tian and Sang Mu addressed each other, Zhuowen knew that the girl in front of him was the 9th commandery princess. You don't believe me? The 9th commandery princess was a little unhappy. She pursed her lips and murmured. I wouldn't dare. May I know how you can help me get a spot? The young lady in front of him was of noble status. She was the daughter of a noble family. He did not dare to slight her in the slightest. Of course I won't lie to you. However, if you agree to be my personal arcanist and join the house of Marquis Qin, I will tell you the way. What do you think? The 9th commandery princess casually fiddled with the loose strands of hair in her bun. Her watery eyes revealed a trace of slyness as she said with a playful smile. Zhuowen sneered in his heart as he stared at the girl who was smiling innocently. Although the 9th commandery princess looked innocent and cute, she was actually a schemer. The 9th commandery princess hadn't even said the solution yet, but she wanted Zhuowen to agree to join the house of Marquis Qin. If Zhuowen agreed and the solution the 9th commandery princess mentioned was false, then wouldn't Zhuowen have to suffer in silence? Zhuowen cupped his hands and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, I still feel that your highness should first explain the method and then let me think about it. When the time comes, I will naturally give your highness an answer. What do you think? Oh. Do you mean that I would deceive you? Do you think that I, a commandery princess, will deceive you, a humble disciple of a small family? The smile on the 9th commandery princess's face slowly disappeared, replaced by a trace of indifference. Within a few sentences, the 9th commandery princess in front of him changed her expression faster than a magic trick. This made Zhuowen's heart tremble. It seemed that the 9th commandery princess, who was about the same age as him, wasn't a simple person. Zhuowen didn't reply. Instead, he raised his head and quietly looked at the 9th commandery princess in front of him. His eyes contained stubbornness and determination, as well as a trace of unyielding momentum. For a moment, the atmosphere in the hall became a little strange. Guyu Tian and Master Kuraki looked at the 9th commandery princess's beautiful face, which suddenly became cold. They couldn't help but feel cold sweat on their backs. The 9th commandery princess in front of them, regardless of whether it was her identity or status, was not something that they could compare with. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the entire Rattan Armor City couldn't even compare to a finger of the 9th commandery princess. If the 9th commandery princess gave an order, the small Rattan Armor City would completely disappear from the world. Although the two of them were worried about Zhuowen, they didn't dare to interrupt at all. After all, the 9th commandery princess was such an influential person, and she didn't like to be interrupted when she was talking. The strange atmosphere only lasted for a while. Suddenly, the 9th commandery princess, whose beautiful face was full of indifference, covered her mouth and laughed. Her bell-like laughter suddenly filled the entire hall. What a stubborn guy. But I admire stubborn guys like you. You don't have to be so serious. In fact, the method is very simple. Isn't the Vitality Tower battle going to start soon? If you can get into the top 100 in the Vitality Tower battle, you can participate in the Battle of the 9 Counties. And if you can stand out in the Battle of the 9 Counties and win the final victory, you can be conferred as a Marquis by Emperor Qing. Not only will you be conferred as a Marquis, but you will also be recommended by Emperor Qing to enter Jiaxin College. Don't you think it's very simple? The 9th commandery princess giggled. She was still playing with a strand of her hair, but her watery eyes were staring at the young man in front of her. When Zhuowen heard this, he was speechless. The ninth commandery princess in front of him didn't have good intentions. The method she mentioned was equivalent to not having any method at all. In the end, he still had to be conferred as a marquis to be qualified to enter Jiaxin College. However, Zhuowen didn't know that the final winner of the Battle of the Nine Counties, not only would he be conferred as a marquis, but he would also be recommended by Emperor Qing to enter Jiaxin College. Zhuowen knew that the only and fastest way was to participate in the Vitality Tower battle and enter the top 100. Then, he could participate in the Battle of the Nine Counties and become the final winner. Only then would he be able to enter Jiaxin College in a short period of time. Thank you for your reminder, Commandery Princess. It seems that this should be the fastest way to enter Jiaxin College. Zhuowen clasped his hands together and said seriously. Looking at the serious face of the young man in front of her, the teasing expression on the ninth commandery princess's face gradually disappeared. Her beautiful eyes stared at the young man in front of her with a strange look. She said, "You really intend to participate in the Vitality Tower battle and even the Battle of the Nine Counties? You should know that countless geniuses from the entire empire will gather there. To stand out among so many geniuses is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Don't think that just because you are invincible among the younger generation in Rotten Armor City, that all the geniuses in the Qing Xian Empire are no match for you. If that's what you think, I'd advise you to give up on the idea of participating in the Vitality Tower battle. Don't lose your life when the time comes. Are you trying to say that I am a frog at the bottom of a well? However, you may have missed a point. The frog at the bottom of the well is short-sighted because he has always been at the bottom of the well. However, if the frog at the bottom of the well jumps out of the well, then he will be able to see a different sky. What I want to do is to jump out of the well and find a higher world. I don't want to stay at the bottom of the well for the rest of my life. Sometimes." At this point, Zhuowen's face suddenly revealed a trace of a calm smile. His smile was calm and indifferent, but his eyes contained a trace of unyieldingness and sharpness. Sometimes, the courage to keep moving forward is more important and precious than a mediocre life. Looking at the young man in front of her who was smiling unyieldingly, the ninth commandery princess suddenly froze. Her smile also froze. She did not expect the young man's answer to be so different. Courage is more precious than life. If this is your true opinion, I am looking forward to your performance. Strength is not just a matter of words. It depends on the real strength of your hands. After muttering to herself, the ninth commandery princess once again let out a tinkling laughter. Then she slowly left the hall, but her clear laughter echoed in the hall. It seems that the ninth commandery princess appeared in the hall this time for you. Even the house of Marquis Qin can't ignore your talent of mental strength. Zhuowen, if you join the house of Marquis Qin, you should be able to get more resources. At that time, your chances of entering the top 100 in the Vitality Tower battle will also increase a lot. Gazing at the ninth commandery princess's silhouette, Gu Tian came to Zhuowen's side and suddenly said. Zhuowen shook his head. The ninth commandery princess was quite scheming. The conversation just now seemed to be simple, but in fact, it was tit for tat. Zhuowen's answer was very clear, that was, he would not join the house of Marquis Qin. Governor, you know my character. I don't like to be bound by restrictions. If I join the house of Marquis Qin, although there are many benefits, there are more restrictions. That's not the life I want. Zhuowen shook his head and said, spreading out his hands. In fact, Zhuowen had something he didn't say in his heart. He had many secrets. If he were to enter Mu Qin Marquis Mansion where experts were as common as clouds, the chances of him being exposed would be very high. But you also need to be careful of the ninth commandery princess. Although she seems to be innocent, she is quite scheming. She hates it when people go against her will. Maybe she will give you some obstacles later. But you are a second-grade arcanist, so she won't dare to kill you. Master Kuraki sighed. Apparently, he was familiar with the ninth commandery princess's character. Thank you for your reminder, Master Kuraki. I will be careful. But why did the 9th Commandery Princess come to Rattan Armor City? I don't think there is anything in Rattan Armor City that the House of Marquis Qin is interested in. Zhuowen nodded slightly, and then asked in confusion. Guyu Tian and Master Kuraki looked at each other. Then, they told Zhuowen about the appearance of the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye in the ancient cavern. They did not hide anything from Zhuowen. After all, Zhuowen's strength was on par with theirs. Naturally, they would not hide these things. An ancient cavern appeared in the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. Zhuowen was shocked, and then he muttered to himself. According to Guyu Tian, the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye went berserk for some unknown reason a month ago. That was why Marquis Qin of the prefecture capital sensed the restrictive power in the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. Then, he used the infinite heaven and earth secret technique to calculate that there was an ancient cavern in the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye. Zhuowen knew that the Heaven Fiend Dark Eye went berserk because of the commotion caused by him refining the holy ice-fire symbol. But of course, Zhuowen was not stupid enough to say this out loud. Recently, many forces from the prefecture capital will come to Rattan Armor City. So, Zhuo family should be more careful. Don't get into conflict with those forces. Otherwise, the Zhuo family will be at a disadvantage, Guyu Tian said seriously. Zhuowen nodded slightly, and then said, Governor, the battle for the quota to enter the Vitality Tower in Rattan Armor City should be starting soon, right? How many quotas does our Rattan Armor City have to enter the Vitality Tower? Rattan Armor City only has 3 quotas. With your strength, it should not be a problem to get a quota. The battle for the quota will start in about 3 days. At that time, the other forces in Rattan Armor City will send their top juniors to participate. The location will be in the outskirts of Rattan Armor City. Chapter 161. Ice Fire 3 days passed by like flowing water. In these 3 days, the originally deserted Rattan Armor City had become even more lively. Many unknown factions swarmed into the small Rattan Armor City like locusts. These factions were not native to Rattan Armor City, but had come from the county capital. Whether it was strength or numbers, they were many times stronger than the other factions in Rattan Armor City. As Rattan Armor City became more and more lively, the rumors of the ancient cave mansion also gradually spread. It was this rumor that caused all the warriors in Rattan Armor City to explode. Everyone understood the significance of the ancient cave mansion. The resources within were sufficient to turn a mediocre person into a genius, and allow a weak person to become a strong person. Therefore, some of the warriors, who were hoping for a fluke, rubbed their hands together and prepared to enter the ancient cave mansion. On a thick rock at Tianju Cliff, a young man sat cross-legged quietly. The young man gently waved his right hand and the ice symbol on the back of his right hand emitted an icy blue light. The cold air below Tianju Cliff immediately surged into his right palm. At the same time, the young man patted his Qiankun bag with his left hand and took out a fiery red stone. The fiery red surface of the stone emitted a scorching heat. This stone was called a Yang Yuan stone. It contained a strong Yang fire qi. Many warriors who had advanced to the corporeal Yang stage relied on absorbing the Yang fire qi in the Yang Yuan stone to condense their armor. The Yang fire qi in the Yang Yuan stone had reached the common level. The cold air in Tianju Cliff was also at the common level. Therefore, these 2 types of fire and ice energy were just right for Zhuowen to practice the ice-fire sacred symbol. Yang Yuan stones were not rare items. In Master Tsang Mu's trading center, there was a sufficient reserve of Yang Yuan stones. Therefore, Zhuowen did not hesitate to take away a quarter of Master Tsang Mu's Yang Yuan stones. At that time, when Grandmaster Kuraki saw Zhuowen take away so many Yang Yuan stones, his face turned green. Fortunately, Zhuowen's Qiankun bag had been replaced with the Tyrant Blood's high-grade Qiankun bag. The space inside was much larger than his previous low-grade Qiankun bag, which was why he could store so many Yang Yuan stones. After taking out the Yang Yuan stones, Zhuowen's left hand suddenly squeezed. The Yang Yuan stones were instantly crushed and a surge of flames immediately gushed out. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He carefully controlled the two types of extreme energy in his hands and slowly brought them together. At the same time, Zhuowen had to divide his attention on the ice-fire sacred symbol. The ice-fire holy symbol had an abnormal control over the two energies of ice and fire. This kind of extreme control had unimaginable benefits for the fusion of the two energies. Only when the ratio of the two energies was fixed could the five-colored energy ball be on the verge of exploding. The instant Zhuowen tossed out the energy ball, the critical point of the explosion within the ball would be in an extremely unstable state. When it hit an object, the multicolored energy ball would explode with an extremely terrifying explosive energy. Sizzle. A faint sound slowly rang out. Soon after, strands of sparks leaped out from Zhuowen's hands. Soon after, a muffled thunder-like sound slowly rang out. Zhuowen's hands suddenly intertwined as the two extreme energies in his hands completely fused together. A five-colored energy ball finally slowly floated above Zhuowen's right hand. A rapidly destructive and powerful aura escaped from the energy ball. Phew! After 3 days of hard work, I finally have a preliminary understanding of the ice-fire sacred symbol's fusion secret. In the future, this five-colored energy ball will be called the ice-fire ball. This name is rather appropriate. Zhuowen wiped off a trace of cold sweat on his forehead as he spoke with an excited look in his eyes. Not bad. Based on your current physical fitness, fusing the ordinary level ice and fire energy should be just right for you. If you go one level higher and fuse the mortal level ice and fire energy, I'm afraid that you will end up like last time. When your yuan power is exhausted, even moving will become a luxury. Moreover, this name that you have obtained is quite good. In that case, let's call it Ice Fire. Xiao He had appeared on Zhuowen's shoulder at an unknown time. She looked at the five-colored energy ball in his hand and spoke with some satisfaction. Therefore, it is best that you do not merge the Nirvana demon flame within the sacred symbol and the cold aura of the heaven fiend Dark Eye unless you are in a desperate situation. Zhuowen nodded slightly. Zhuowen also agreed with Xiao He's suggestion. I'm afraid that the competition for the spots is about to begin. We should also head over and participate. Zhuowen stared indifferently at the five-colored energy ball in his right hand. With a gentle flick of his right hand, he threw the five-colored energy ball into the endless cold air at the bottom of Absolute Sky Cliff. Immediately, his entire body transformed into a ghost-like illusory figure and disappeared from the spot. Not long after Zhuowen left, an earth-shaking explosion was violently transmitted from the bottom of the Absolute Sky Cliff. Immediately, an endless white, cold chi rushed to the sky from the bottom of the cliff, appearing as though an enormous tornado had been stirred. At this moment, quite a number of people had already gathered in the courtyard in front of the city governor's mansion. Guyu Tian was among them. A man and a woman were standing beside Guyu Tian. The man was wearing white clothes. His demeanor was refined and elegant. The woman was wearing a red dress. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her actions were appropriate and generous. The white-clothed man was Gu Xian, Guyu Tian's eldest son. The woman was naturally Guyu. The two of them stood on the left and right of Guyu Tian. Other than Guyu and Gu Xian, there were also a couple of young men around 20 years of age standing behind Guyu Tian. The expressions of these few young men were calm. Their temples were bulging. Clearly, they were quite strong. On the other hand, Master Kuraki stood side by side with Guyu Tian, looking calm and composed. As for Guyu Tian, there was another group of people standing beside him. Among them, the most eye-catching one was a girl in a green dress. The girl had snow-white skin, rosy lips, and rosy cheeks. Her appearance was even prettier than Guyu's. What was more attractive was that the girl in the green dress had a pair of lively eyes. It was as if they were alive, attracting the attention of many people. Princess. Zhuowen doesn't know what's good for him. You have already personally invited him. How could he not appreciate your kindness and refuse to join the house of Marquis Qin? What an arrogant and conceited boy. Why don't we just kill him on the spot? Su Chang, who was wearing a blue robe, stood quietly beside the ninth commandery princess. He gently waved his folding fan and said in a low voice. Yesterday, he had heard that the ninth commandery princess had personally gone to the hall to meet Zhuowen. Although he felt that the ninth commandery princess had made a fuss over a minor issue, what surprised him was that Zhuowen refused the ninth commandery princess's invitation. This was beyond Su Chang's expectation. Since Marquis Muqin was the ruler of the entire Muqin county, his marquis mansion had unimaginable resources and countless masters. As long as one joined the house of Marquis Qin, no matter if it was status, power, or wealth, they would all be at his fingertips. Countless warriors in the entire Muqin county had tried their best to join the house of Marquis Qin but failed. Now that the honorable commandery princess had personally invited him, it was the first time that Su Chang had seen someone refuse. That guy is indeed overconfident. But some of his words are quite philosophical. However, that fellow personally rejected my invitation, so I won't let him off so easily. Isn't there going to be a competition for the quota of the entire Rattan Armor City later? In that case, I'd like to see just how capable that fellow is. Speaking of this, the ninth commandery princess's beautiful eyes suddenly revealed a trace of craftiness. She immediately turned to the old man behind her and said, "Lingju, take out the purple gold door. Later, I'll be in charge of the competition for the quota of the Rattan Armor City. Zhuowen, that fellow, won't be able to escape from the palm of my hand." Purple gold door. Commandery princess, the purple gold door is the spiritual treasure of the third master. The third master will be here in a few days. I'm afraid it's not appropriate to use the spiritual treasure of the third master without his permission. Lingju's old face revealed a trace of hesitation as he spoke. Humph. It's me who's borrowing it, not you. What are you afraid of? Moreover, the third master loves me. If he's here, he'll definitely borrow it. You don't have to worry about it. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility for it. The ninth commandery princess pouted her lips and snorted. Lingju wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. The third master he mentioned was the third son of Marquis Muqin, Lu Yuanhua. It was said that Lu Yuanhua was cold and heartless, and his methods were cruel. Many servants in the house of Marquis Qin were afraid of the third master. However, as the ninth commandery princess had said, the cold and heartless third master loved the ninth commandery princess very much. After thinking for a while, Lingju had no choice but to agree. Immediately, he patted his Qiankuan bag and a black shadow appeared in his palm. This black shadow was a palm-sized purple gold door. On the surface of the purple gold door, there was a splendid purple gold door, which looked quite mysterious. After receiving the purple gold door from Lingju's hand, the ninth commandery princess's eyes suddenly turned into crescents. A smile appeared on her face, and a pair of cute little canine teeth could be vaguely seen. She could not help but attract the attention of many people. Not long after the ninth commandery princess received the purple gold door, several figures came into the governor's mansion. As he stared at the few figures that had appeared at the entrance, Gu Tian's eyes hardened, before a glint appeared in his eyes. Soon after, he laughed heartily as he walked in front of the few figures, before he heavily patted the leader's shoulder. "Zhuo family head, I haven't seen you for a long time. Your body is getting stronger and stronger. I also want to congratulate the Zhuo family head for successfully reaching the human king realm. Your Zhuo clan's victory over the Wang and Chen clans is well deserved." These figures were the members of the Zhuo family. Zhuo Xiangding stood in the front. Behind him were Zhuowen, Zhuo Baitian, and Zhuo Dingtian. This time, Zhuo Xiangding did not bring many people. He only brought a few important people. After all, this competition was Zhuowen's own business. The Zhuo family could not help much. However, Zhuo Xiangding was full of confidence in Zhuowen. After all, in the battle with the Wang family and the Chen family, Zhuo Wen's powerful strength had completely conquered the Zhuo family. Chapter 162. Yingxiuluo Zhuo Xiangding and Gu Yutian chatted for a while. Then, under the introduction of Gu Yutian, all the members of the Zhuo family greeted the 9th commandery princess one by one. However, when Zhuo Wen passed by the 9th commandery princess, the 9th commandery princess stared straight at him. No matter how thick-skinned Zhuo Xiangding was, he could not stand it. Somehow, Zhuo Wen could feel that the 9th commandery princess was staring at him like a hunter staring at his prey. Her eyes were full of ridicule and arrogance, which made Zhuo Wen a little uncomfortable. After arriving at the group behind Gu Yutian, the white-clothed Gu Xian couldn't help but glance at Zhuo Wen. He had also heard about the recent rumors about Zhuo Wen, especially the absurd rumor that Zhuo Wen had actually killed a human king realm cultivator. Even he was filled with disbelief. Half-step to corporeal yang stage. Gu Xian muttered to herself. Her eyes were filled with doubt and doubt. Zhuo Wen's aura was only at the half-step yang realm. Although he knew that Zhuo Wen's mind power had reached level 2, could he really kill a human king realm warrior with such strength? What Gu Xian didn't know was that Zhuo Wen's main strength lay in the Ice-Fire Saint symbol and the ice and fire energy it contained. That was his ultimate trump card. The moment Zhuo Wen appeared, Gu Yu's complicated gaze continuously paused on Zhuo Wen's body. She had heard of Zhuo Wen's various feats recently. She did not expect that Zhuo Wen would actually grow to such an extent after not seeing him for half a year. Zhuo Wen silently stood at the back of the group with his eyes narrowed, as if he was taking a nap. However, a clear voice quickly sounded beside his ears. Zhuo Wen, were you really the one who killed Chen Sheng and Wang Yuanqing? Tilting his head, Zhuo Wen happened to see Gu Yu staring at him with a smile. Slightly stunned, Zhuo Wen scratched his head embarrassedly and said with a smile, I was just lucky. In fact, the process at that time was not as exaggerated as the rumors say. Gu Yu's beautiful eyes moved as she stared at Zhuo Wen. From Zhuo Wen's expression, she could see that the young man in front of her didn't want to talk too much about the situation. Therefore, Gu Yu lowered her eyelids and deliberately avoided the topic. Instead, she chatted with Zhuo Wen about other things. While chatting, Zhuo Wen also noticed that Gu Yu's cultivation had reached the 3rd stage of the corporeal yang realm. However, what shocked Zhuo Wen even more was that Gu Xian, who had been silently standing beside Gu Yutian, had reached the 9th stage of the corporeal yang realm. Zhuo Wen remembered that half a year ago, Gu Xian seemed to be at the half-step corporeal yang realm. In just half a year, her cultivation had actually jumped so many levels. This made Zhuo Wen see the foundation of the City Lord Mansion once again. From this, it could be seen that Gu Yutian had invested a lot in Gu Xian. Gu Yutian, who was in front of the group, also saw that everyone had arrived. Therefore, he shouted and led the group towards the outskirts in a grandiose manner. 10 miles away from Rattan Armor City, there was a rather remote open space. The open space was a deserted field with weeds growing in it. However, the area was quite large. In these 3 days, Gu Yutian had already sent people to cut the weeds in the open space and built a large arena on the open space. The arena was built with hard bluestone. There were 2 in each direction, making a total of 8 arenas. They were placed on the open space and looked rather neat and mighty. At this time, many warriors had already gathered around the arena. Among them, there was no lack of mercenaries. After all, there were quite a number of mercenaries in Rattan Armor City. The warriors gathered around the arena were basically the local forces of Rattan Armor City. As for the forces from the commandery capital, they naturally had no interest in this kind of competition for the quota in Rattan Armor City. Therefore, the 9th commandery princess and the others were probably the only forces from the commandery capital who were willing to come and watch the competition for the quota. When Gu Yutian and his group appeared on the open space, many warriors at the scene discussed animatedly and took the initiative to open a path for them. Around the arena, there was a high platform that had been temporarily set up. There were many empty seats on the high platform. Guyuetian led the group to the high platform and took their seats, as they began to wait for the other participating factions to arrive. Seated on the high platform, Zhuowen sized up the surrounding martial artists. When he discovered that the martial artists around him were of varying strengths, he narrowed his eyes in a disinterested manner and closed them to rest his mind. However, this kind of rest did not last for long. Suddenly, an ear-piercing sound of rushing wind was heard. Then, a few figures appeared on the high platform. There were only 4 people in this group, and the leader was an old man with white hair and beard. However, the old man had a kind and benevolent smile on his face, which made people feel that this old man was amiable at first glance. Although the old man's smile was quite amiable, the aura on his body was as vast as the ocean. This aura had already surpassed the peak of the corporeal yang stage. Zhuowen could feel that the old man's aura was even stronger than his grandfather, Zhuo Xiangding. It was not much different from the dead Lu Qingshang. Advanced Human King Realm. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He did not expect that the leader of the force that had just appeared was already at the Advanced Human King Realm. This surprised Zhuowen. It seemed that there were many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in Rattan Armor City. That is the head of the Huban sect, Hu Shao. The Huban sect is an extremely powerful force in Rattan Armor City. Their overall strength is only slightly weaker than the City Lord Mansion. As Zhuowen was observing the old man, Guyutian's voice sounded from behind him. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes wandered and looked at the black-haired young man behind the old man. The young man's appearance was rather rough. He was tall and burly. The muscles on his body were like coiled roots. He looked quite terrifying. That is the head disciple of the Huban sect's head, Hu Shao, Hu Wuying. I heard that this person has inherited Hu Zhao's true teachings. His cracking tiger racing fist has reached perfection. I'm afraid his strength has reached the 9th grade of the corporeal yang stage. After introducing the old man, Guyutian did not forget to introduce the burly young man behind the old man. As Zhuowen stared at the black-haired young man, the latter seemed to sense it and tilted his head. His gaze met with Zhuowen's. Immediately, a humming sound that resembled a monstrous roar swept across Zhuowen's mind. This tiger roar was not executed by the black-haired young man. Instead, it was an aura that was involuntarily released from his body after he cultivated the cracking tiger racing fist to the extreme. Zhuowen's expression was calm and his body did not move. When the roaring aura approached him, a pervasive cold air flashed across Zhuowen's eyes and easily cancelled out the aura emitted by the black-haired young man. Oh. Interesting. A warrior who is half a step to the corporeal yang stage can actually cancel out the aura of the cracking tiger racing fist. Moreover, this fellow doesn't seem to be strained at all. The aura dissipated. A trace of surprise flashed across the black-haired young man's eyes as he spoke with a smile. A warrior who is half a step to the corporeal yang stage can actually cancel out the aura of your fist. Interesting. Looking at the position that kid is standing, he should be one of the contestants sent by the city governor's mansion. It seems that the city governor's mansion is getting worse year by year. They actually sent a kid who is half a step to the corporeal yang stage to participate in the slot competition. The white-haired old man, Hu Shao, also noticed the small friction between Hu Wuying and Zhuowen. He stroked his white beard and said with a faint smile. The black-haired young man, Hu Wuying, nodded slightly. He immediately focused his gaze on Gu Xian, who was standing in front of Zhuowen. He calmly said, "It seems that the strong opponent this time should be Gu Xian. Judging from her aura, she should have reached the corporeal yang stage 9. Following the arrival of the Huban sect, other forces in Vine Armor City also arrived. However, these forces' foundations were obviously much weaker than the Huban sect's. None of the leaders were above the corporeal yang stage, and the strength of the juniors they brought was uneven. Zhuowen even saw a few contestants who were only at the Yin Void stage. It was obvious that these forces were only here to make up the scene. At the same time, they also wanted to see the slot competition. With the arrival of many forces, the entire open space became more and more lively. There were also many people sitting on the high platforms around the arena. Just as the liveliness reached its peak, another violent sound of breaking wind rang out from afar. Soon after, 3 figures appeared proudly on the high platform. However, the moment these 3 figures appeared, the scene suddenly fell into a brief silence. Even Guyu Tian, who was standing in front of Zhuowen, was silent. His gaze was fixed on the 5 figures that had just appeared. The attentive Zhuowen even noticed that when these 5 figures appeared, Guyu Tian's body suddenly trembled, as if his body had been pushed by someone. Zhuowen was a little puzzled by Guyu Tian's abnormal behavior. Hence, he focused his gaze on the 3 figures that had just appeared on the high platform. The leader of the 3 figures was a middle-aged man in a long black robe. His eyes were cold and gloomy. A cold aura, like that of winter in the 12th lunar month, spread out from the middle-aged man's body. The moment this aura spread out, the entire arena fell into a gloomy and cold atmosphere. Feeling the gloomy and cold aura from the middle-aged man, Zhuowen's pupils involuntarily shrank. He could feel that the aura from the middle-aged man's body was even stronger than Hu Shao from the Tiger Ben sect. It was obvious that the middle-aged man in front of him was a perfect human king stage expert. He only needed a moment of enlightenment to reach the Earth King stage, which was the realm that the number 1 expert in Rot-10 Armor City, Guyu Tian, was currently at. The sect leader of the Yin-sifting sect, Ing Xuelua. Guyu Tian's gloomy voice slowly spread out around the arena. His gaze was fixed on the middle-aged man in the black robe who had just appeared. Hee. So it's Guyu Tian. Every time there is a slot battle, you come so early. However, I'm afraid that you will return disappointed again. Ing Xuelua's gloomy and cold eyes stared at Guyu Tian as his cold laughter rang out. Ing Xuelua, don't you think it's too early to be happy? Don't let your joy turn to sorrow. Guyu Tian smiled faintly, but his gaze became increasingly unfriendly. Chapter 163. The battle for the quota. Guyu seemed to have noticed the confusion on Zhuowen's face and patiently explained, these 3 people belong to the Yin-sifting sect. Although the Yin-sifting sect is not located in the main city of Rot-10 Armor City, its strength is almost the same as the City Lord Mansion. If not for the fact that the Yin-sifting sect mastering Xuelua's cultivation is slightly weaker than Father's, the Yin-sifting sect could even surpass the City Lord Mansion. Moreover, in the previous battle for the quota, the City Lord Mansion and the Yin-sifting sect suffered a loss. As a result, the City Lord Mansion did not occupy a single quota, while the Yin-sifting sect occupied 2. Also, you have to be careful. The Yin-sifting sect has always been at odds with the City Lord Mansion. In the competition later, it is very likely that they will target the people from the City Lord Mansion. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He did not expect the Yin-sifting sect, which had just appeared, to have such a strong background. Its strength was actually not much different from the City Lord Mansion. Moreover, in the previous battle for the quota, the City Lord Mansion had suffered a loss at the hands of the Yin-sifting sect. While frowning, Zhuowen's gaze shifted slightly and gathered on the 2 people behind Ing Xuelua. He knew that these 2 people should be the disciples sent by the Yin-sifting sect this time. The 2 of them were a man and a woman. However, what made Zhuowen feel a little strange was that the man's fingers were pinched together like an orchid and his cheeks were smeared with crimson rouge. As his gaze swept across, he actually revealed the posture of a little girl. If this posture was revealed on a young girl, perhaps it would be a pleasing scene. However, the person in front of him was a genuine man. This caused Zhuowen's heart to be filled with strange emotions. The woman beside the effeminate man was the exact opposite. She was tall and strong, and her thigh-like arms were even more muscular. At this moment, her arms were crossed in front of her chest, and she had an expression of resting with her eyes closed. With Guyu's introduction, Zhuowen also learned the names of these 2 somewhat strange combinations. The effeminate man was called Ing Qianghua, and the woman was called Ing Hualan. Both of them were the biological children of Ing Xuelua and were geniuses that Ing Xuelua had cultivated from a young age. Although the combination of these two was a little strange, the aura they revealed made Zhuowen's heart. This was because their cultivation was not the slightest bit inferior to Gu Xian's, which meant that they were both 9th stage corporeal yang. It seemed that the Yin sifting sect's strength was not inferior to the city lord mansion's. It was not for nothing, they were able to cultivate 2 9th stage corporeal yang cultivators at the same time. And Xuelua Gu's. Dong dong. Not long after the Yin sifting sect's arrival, a few more forces landed on the high platform. However, the remaining forces were clearly much weaker than the city lord's mansion, the Huban sect, and the Yin sifting sect. Zhuowen knew that the 3 spots for this competition would be decided by these 3 forces. When all the factions had arrived, Gu Yuetian also stood up from the high platform. As the number 1 practitioner in Rotten Armor City, and also the city lord of Rotten Armor City, he was naturally the one in charge of the competition for the quotas. However, just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, a silver bell-like laughter resounded across the entire empty ground. City Lord Gu, why don't you let me preside over this competition? This bird-like laughter immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the open space. Immediately, everyone's gaze focused on the girl in a green dress at the top of the high platform. Princess, this doesn't seem to be in accordance with the rules. After all, this is Rotten Armor City. Before Gu Yutian could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the 9th Commandery Princess. The 9th Commandery Princess put her hands on her hips and curled her cherry lips. Are you looking down on me? Seeing the 9th Commandery Princess's attitude, Gu Yutian could only helplessly nod his head and say, since the 9th Commandery Princess wants to preside over this competition, I naturally have no objections. Seeing that Gu Yutian had agreed, the 9th Commandery Princess's lips curled into a charming smile. However, many forces in the open space began to discuss spiritedly. Among them, the leader of the Huban sect, Hu Xiao, and the leader of the Yin sifting sect, Ing Xuelua, were not looking at the girl in the green dress. Instead, they were looking at the white-haired Lingjiu behind her. They could feel that the Lingjiu was emitting an inexplicably powerful aura. That aura was even more powerful than Gu Yutian's. Coupled with the way Gu Yutian addressed the girl, they knew that these people must be the forces from the prefecture capital that had caused a stir in the past few days. Although the Huban sect and the Yin sifting sect had some guesses about the forces behind the 9th Commandery Princess and thus did not dare to act rashly, the other forces were obviously not as farsighted as the 2 forces. Soon, one of the forces stood up. It was a middle-aged man who seemed to be the leader. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the 9th Commandery Princess with disdain. He sneered and said, "Where did this little girl come from? Do you think we must let you preside over the competition just because you said so? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? Perhaps it would be more practical for you to warm my bed." At this point, the middle-aged man stared at the 9th Commandery Princess with a hint of lust in his eyes. Obviously, he was thinking of something bad. However, after the middle-aged man finished his words, he felt that something was wrong. The originally dense crowd had unknowingly moved away from him as if they were avoiding the plague. Zhuowen looked at the middle-aged man who was not far away with pity. This middle-aged man was obviously not well informed. He did not even know the identity of the 9th Commandery Princess. Moreover, this man was not very smart. Just now, Gu Yutian had called the 9th Commandery Princess. How could he not know that the 9th Commandery Princess was not an ordinary person? It seemed that the idiom, pig-like teammate, referred to this kind of person. On the high platform, the smile on the 9th Commandery Princess's face became brighter like a blooming rose. Her watery eyes stared at the middle-aged man who still did not know what was going on. She smiled faintly and said, "It has been a long time since someone said such rude words to me. Now that I think about it, it is a bit strange. Princess, how should we deal with this man?" Lingjiu, who was behind her, stood up slowly. She stared at the middle-aged man emotionlessly as if she was looking at a dead man. break his limbs, throw him into a pigsty and keep him there for 49 days. Then, kill him. The ninth commandery princess still had a bright smile on her face, but her eyes were filled with coldness. Lingju nodded slightly and raised her right hand slightly. 4 spiral-like Yuanli cyclones shot towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man did not even know what was going on. He could only watch as the 4 cyclones ruthlessly shot towards his 4 limbs like merciless blades. He only felt an intense pain coming from his 4 limbs. Soon after, he involuntarily fell backwards. His protruding eye sockets could clearly see that his limbs had been separated from his body. Ah! A miserable shriek slowly spread throughout the empty space. Many people who heard it felt a sense of horror in their hearts. The middle-aged man, whose limbs had been cut off, was already half a step away from the Zhao King realm. However, Lingju, who was on the high platform, only moved her fingers and easily broke his limbs. At the same time, 2 soldiers carried the middle-aged man away according to the ninth commandery princess's instructions. They must have sent him to the pigsty nearby. On the high platform, Zhuowen could not help but feel a chill in his heart as he looked at the girl who had ordered to break the man's limbs without even blinking her eyes. Although the young lady in front of him was about the same age as him, the coldness and scheming that she displayed caused Zhuowen to feel a chill in his heart. It seemed that none of the children of marquises were simple. The ninth commandery princess seemed to have noticed Zhuowen's gaze. She tilted her head and stared at Zhuowen with her watery eyes. Her snow-white face revealed a playful smile as if the order to break the man's limbs had nothing to do with her. After the shock just now, the atmosphere in the open space suddenly became strange. Many people stared at the girl on the high platform and the Lingju behind her with fear. Now, who still has a problem with me being the host of this competition? If there is, just say it. I will accept it with an open mind. The ninth commandery princess smiled brightly again and said with a playful wink. However, the Lingju behind her suddenly straightened her body. An extremely heavy aura suddenly burst out from her body. Like a mountain, it heavily pressed down on the open space. Many people could not help but kneel down under this pressure. Their breathing became extremely rapid. The strength of the peak of the Heavenly King stage. Hu Xiao, the leader of the Tiger Ben sect, and Ing Xuelua, the leader of the Yin Sifting sect, felt the powerful aura from the Lingju and their pupils shrank. Although they had some guesses about the Lingju on the high platform, they did not expect that the Lingju's cultivation had reached the peak of the Heavenly King stage. This kind of strength was not only in Tingjia City, but even in the commandery capital. She was not weak. Looking at the silent crowd, the ninth commandery princess nodded with satisfaction and said, "Since no one has any objections, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Since I am the host of this competition, then the competition will be carried out according to my rules. Therefore, in the first round of the competition, there is no need to fight one-on-one. It is better to have a great battle royale. Of course, this kind of battle royale is a competition between the forces of each force as a whole. Only the 3 forces who survive in the end are qualified to fight for the final 3 places." Speaking of this, the ninth commandery princess nodded to the Lingju behind her. Immediately, the Lingju stepped lightly on the ground. Her whole body was like a vigorous eagle as she flew toward the arena in the open space. The moment she flew, a powerful Yuan power burst out from her body. 8 huge Yuan power palms suddenly condensed from her back. The 8 Yuan power palms swept in all directions and grabbed the 8 bluestone arenas in the open space. Then, with a fierce tug, the 8 arenas suddenly gathered together in mid-air under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Boom! Chapter 164. The fight begins. As they stared at the sky above the arena, Lingju, who had created the arena with ease, a trace of astonishment appeared in everyone's eyes. Each of the 8 large bluestone arenas in the open space weighed tens of millions of jin. Even an expert like Gu Yutian would find it difficult to lift them up so casually. However, Lingju was actually able to do it so casually. Furthermore, the 8 large bluestone arenas were built together. This made many people sigh in their hearts. Lingju was indeed a peak Heavenly King stage expert. After the giant arena was built, Lingju returned to the 9th Commandery Princess side and stood there quietly. Zhuowen stared at the center of the open space, at the huge arena that was built from 8 limestone arenas. Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he muttered to himself, a chaotic battle? What a unique method. Gu Xian, Gu Yu, and Zhuowen, since the first round of the selection is a battle royale, then you must work together and seize the top 3 spots. If nothing unexpected happens, it won't be difficult for our city lord's mansion to take the top 3 spots. But you still have to be careful. Gu Yutian turned around and looked at Gu Xian, Gu Yu, and Zhuowen behind him. His face was filled with caution. The 3 of them looked at each other, then nodded at the same time. They knew that they were representing the city lord's mansion in this battle royale, so they naturally wouldn't be careless. Seeing the 3 nodding their heads, Gu Yutian looked satisfied. At the same time, the voice of the 9th Commandery Princess, who was sitting at the top of the stage, rang out. It seems that everyone has understood the rules. If that's the case, then... Speaking up to this point, the 9th Commandery Princess extended her jade-like hand that was as white as a lotus root. Under everyone's gaze, she lightly waved her hand and said, "Then, the first round of the Battle of the Places will begin now." Boom! As the 9th Commandery Princess's palm fell, the originally quiet open space was suddenly filled with a loud bang. Countless primordial forces of different colors suddenly burst out in a dazzling manner. Along with the explosion of the primordial chi, numerous figures in the open space flashed and rushed towards the huge arena. In an instant, Yuan power burst forth on the entire arena as force swirled. Not long later, a couple of miserable cries sounded out. Immediately, a couple of miserable-looking human figures suddenly flew out of the arena in front of everyone's eyes. However, with the exception of a small number of cultivators who had erupted into battle as soon as they entered the arena, most of the cultivators quickly retreated to the edge of the arena. They did not want to foolishly stay in the center of the arena and become a live target for everyone. There were quite a number of forces participating in the competition for the quota this time around. Just the number of contestants alone numbered in the hundreds. Hundreds of young warriors gathered on the arena one after another. It was quite a spectacular sight for a moment. Outside the arena, many people looked at the impending battle on the arena and could not help but become excited. Waves of excited screams resounded through the sky. Ha! Commandery Princess's idea is not bad. It's rare to see such a chaotic battle. The young man in blue, Su Chang, waved his folding fan and elegantly came to the 9th Commandery Princess's side. He smiled faintly. The 9th Commandery Princess glanced at Su Chang, who was beside her. Then, she retracted her gaze. Her watery eyes were fixed on the arena, where there was an inconspicuous, thin figure. The reason why she changed the first round of the competition into a chaotic battle was that she wanted to see what kind of ability Zhuowen, who dared to reject her, had. In such a chaotic situation, it was easy to see a warrior's temperament and willpower. I'd like to see how a philosophical fellow like you will perform. You'd better not be a guy with a silver spear or a wax head. Otherwise, I don't know what I'll do. The 9th Commandery Princess stared at the thin figure and murmured in her heart. Seeing that the 9th Commandery Princess had completely ignored him, Su Chang's hand, which was waving his folding fan, froze for a moment. However, his elegant smile quickly returned to his face. Following the 9th Commandery Princess's gaze, he also fixed his eyes on the inconspicuous young man at the corner of the arena. A trace of coldness flashed through his eyes. He thought to himself, it seems that the 9th Commandery Princess is quite interested in the new toy in front of her. However, if this new toy gets in the way of me and the 9th Commandery Princess, I will have to make it disappear in advance. At this moment, there were people fighting in the arena from time to time. However, many people were obviously afraid that others would attack them behind their backs. Therefore, even if they fought, they did not dare to stay for long. At the edge of the arena, Gu Xian, Gu Yu, and Zhuowen were all standing there. As soon as the three of them entered the arena, they released their armors and covered their bodies. Gu Xian and Gu Yu were both warriors of the Yang realm. Therefore, they released their real armors. The fiery red armors covered their bodies with patterns. Bursts of blazing flames gradually appeared around their bodies. All of a sudden, the temperature within a radius of 5 miles rose sharply. However, what attracted many people's attention was the young man beside Gu Xian and Gu Yu. The young man naturally released his own armor. However, contrary to Gu Xian and Gu Yu, the young man's armor was only a void armor. The cold air it released was quite conspicuous in the entire arena. This was because the moment they entered the arena, the warriors of the Yin Void realm had already been eliminated by other warriors. Now, the remaining warriors in the arena were all above the Yang realm. It could be said that Zhuowen was the only warrior of the Yin Void realm in the arena. For a moment, Zhuowen became the focus of everyone's attention. Not only did the other contestants in the arena look at Zhuowen, who was standing beside Gu Yu and Gu Xian, but even the other forces outside the arena paid attention to this rather unusual young man. Some of the forces that were originally the main city of Rattan Armor City were not surprised. After all, Zhuowen had caused a huge commotion a few days ago. These forces already knew how terrifying this half-step corporeal Yang realm warrior's true strength was. However, the remaining forces that did not belong to the main city of Rattan Armor City were even more confused. From where Zhuowen stood, this ordinary-looking young man was obviously on the side of the city governor's mansion. However, with the city governor's mansion's background, why would they send out a brat of the Yin Void realm? It seems that the city governor's mansion is declining more and more. Last time, they were defeated and returned. This time, they even sent out such a weak brat. Are they trying to make up the numbers? A somewhat sharp and gloomy voice came from not far away from the arena. The voice contained a strong sense of sarcasm. Gu Xian and the other two turned their heads and saw a man and a woman standing on the other side of the arena. The man was like a sissy, with his fingers curled up like an orchid and his cheeks smeared with thick rouge. The woman, on the other hand, was tall and powerful, with her arms as thick as her thighs. This man and woman were the disciples sent by the Yin Sifting sect to participate in the competition. The man's name was Ying Qianghua and the woman's name was Ying Hualan. Both of them exuded an extremely powerful aura, causing many of the surrounding contestants to reveal dignified and fearful expressions. They did not dare to get close to the two of them. The person who spoke just now was the sissy Ying Qianghua. At this moment, his face was filled with a mocking smile. Gu Xian stared fearfully at Ying Qianghua and Ying Hualan, who were not far away. His face was full of indifference as he said coldly, "Whether the city lord's mansion is in decline or not, it's not up to you to decide. Your Yin Sifting sect thought that just because you defeated the city governor's mansion last time, you still have a chance to defeat us this time. Today, I will tell you that your Yin Sifting sect can only return with a crushing defeat in this competition." Oh! As expected of Gu Yutian's son. Even your words are so domineering. My little heart is beating so fast. I'm so scared. Ying Qianghua pretended to reveal a delicate expression. His right hand, which was pinching his orchid fingers, patted his chest rhythmically, as if he had just been raped. Looking at Ying Qianghua's pretentious act, the corners of Zhuowen's eyes violently twitched. The sissy in front of him really made Zhuowen want to vomit. At this moment, he had the urge to go up and give Ying Qianghua a violent beating. However, Ying Qianghua's words soon came to an abrupt halt. A thick and strong arm suddenly lifted him up. Soon after, a tall figure appeared in front of Gu Xian. Looking at Ying Hualan, who was a head taller than her, Gu Xian fearlessly looked back at her and indifferently said, "Do you want to start a war now?" Hee hee. It's unwise to start a war with the city lord mansion now. After all, this is only the first round of the competition. Moreover, there are 3 spots for the next round. There's no need for us to fight to the death in the first round. Therefore, let's end this dispute here. Ing Qianghua's tone was very unyielding. Moreover, his voice was not as clear as a woman's. Instead, it was filled with the coarseness and gloominess of a burly man. Hearing this burly man-like voice, even Zhuo Wen seriously doubted whether the person in front of him was really a woman. Why was it that no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find any part of this guy that resembled a woman? Let's get rid of these small fries first. As for the grudge between our Yin-sifting sect and the City Lord Mansion, we will naturally settle it in the next round. Ying Hualan shot an indifferent glance at Gu Xian. Then, she carried Ing Qianghua and turned around to leave. She rushed towards the other end of the stage. As for Gu Yu and Zhuo Wen, who were beside Gu Xian, they were completely ignored. Chapter 165. Make a move. 3 particularly powerful auras surged out from the entire arena. 2 of them were emitted by Gu Xian from the City Lord's Mansion and Ing Qianghua and Ing Hualan from the Yin-sifting sect. The remaining one was from Hu Ben's eldest disciple, Hu Wuying. 3 powerful auras filled the entire arena. They occupied 3 different corners of the arena and used the areas they occupied to expel the contestants from the other forces. Amidst the shouts of countless people outside the arena, figures continuously flew out of the arena before finally landing heavily on the ground. The strength of a 9th-grade corporeal yang expert could be said to be at the peak of strength in this arena. Therefore, the 3 factions that occupied the 3 sides had a crushing advantage in the arena. Many weak contestants were kicked out of the arena by the contestants from the 3 factions. During this process, Zhuowen kept a low profile. Gu Xian obviously wanted to show off her strength in front of him, so almost all the enemies in the area they were in were driven away by Gu Xian. Occasionally, Gu Yu could help a little. Only Zhuowen could not do anything at all. A disappointed and arrogant expression flashed across Gu Xian's eyes when he sensed the somewhat idle young man behind him. Although he had heard that the young man in front of him had contributed greatly to the destruction of the Wang and Qin clans a couple of days ago. When Gu Xian heard the rumor that Zhuowen had killed a human king, he turned pale with fright. Originally, he thought that Zhuowen's cultivation had reached an unfathomable level, at least at the human king realm. However, when he saw that the young man was only a half-step to the corporeal yang stage, the anticipation in his heart disappeared and was replaced by disappointment. Now, when he saw that the young man was unable to help in the slightest, the disappointment in his heart turned into disdain. It seems that rumors can't be trusted. I heard that the Zhuo family has a medium-level spiritual treasure, and Zhuo Xiangding has reached the human king realm. The destruction of the Wang and Qin families should be the work of Zhuo Xiangding alone. As for the rumors about Zhuowen, it's very likely that the Zhuo family is trying to promote him. Thinking up to this point, Gu Xian glanced at the leisurely young man behind her and shook her head helplessly. But if this boy really doesn't have the strength, what's the use of creating momentum? In the end, it might even backfire. A sliver of doubt surfaced in Gu Yu's beautiful eyes at this moment. Even she had many doubts about the strength that Zhuo Wen had displayed at this moment, as well as an indescribably complicated expression. Zhuo Wen, who was behind them, naturally saw the expressions on Gu Xian and Gu Yu's faces. Zhuo Wen didn't comment on the doubts on their faces. In his opinion, even if he didn't participate in the first round of the Battle Royale, with the strength of Gu Yu and Gu Xian, they could easily finish it off. However, he didn't expect that in the eyes of Gu Xian and Gu Yu, his actions would be seen as cowardice and a sign of weakness. Zhuo Wen didn't bother to explain. After all, the cultivation that he had displayed was really low. It was only a half-step to the corporeal yang stage. It was no wonder that Gu Xian and Gu Yu had doubts about him. After a while, most of the cultivators in the area that Gu Xian was in charge of had been expelled from the arena. The remaining 4 cultivators nervously stood at the edge of the arena. These 4 cultivators were the strongest team in this area besides Gu Xian and the other 2. It was said that they were disciples of a sect called the Sky Howl sect. Among the 4 cultivators, the leader had reached the 7th stage of the corporeal yang stage, while another was at the 5th stage of the corporeal yang stage. The remaining 2 were similar to Gu Yu and were at the 3rd stage of the corporeal yang stage. The situation is very clear. If the Sky House sect voluntarily withdrew, the city lord's mansion wouldn't do anything. I think that withdrawing now is a very wise choice. Gu Xian said indifferently with her hands behind her back as she stared indifferently at the 4 cultivators of the Sky House sect. That's not necessarily true. Only you, Gu Xian, are slightly stronger in the city lord's mansion. As for the other 2, I don't dare to compliment them. Hee, as long as we delay you and quickly get rid of the 2 burdens behind you, then the 4 of us will join forces. Even if you are a 9th stage corporeal yang stage cultivator, you may not be a match for the 4 of us. The leader of the Sky House sect was a pale-faced youth. At this moment, his gaze swept past Gu Xian and glanced at Gu Yu and Zhuowen behind her as he chuckled coldly. Gu Xian's eyes narrowed slightly as she sneered, "It seems that you guys don't have enough awareness. I can clearly tell you that even if the 4 of you join forces, I can still defeat you. So I advise you to stop wasting your time. It's not up to you to decide whether it's useless or not. Second brother, you and I will delay Gu Xian. Third brother, fourth brother, the 2 of you quickly get rid of the 2 troublesome fellows." The leading young man did not waste any more words with Gu Xian. After calling out to the somewhat quiet young man beside him, the 2 of them suddenly stomped their feet and shot towards Gu Xian like arrows that had been released from a bow. The moment they rushed over, the 2 of them released their most proficient armor skills and fiercely attacked Gu Xian. At the same time, the moment the 2 leading youth made their move, the remaining 2 cultivators also bypassed Gu Xian and rushed towards Gu Yu and Zhuowen. Looking at the 2 people who wanted to bypass her, Gu Xian snorted coldly and was about to stop them. "How dare you bypass me when I'm here? You're courting death." However, the moment she made her move, the leading youth of the Sky House sect and the other cultivator, who was already at the 5th stage of the corporeal yang realm, instantly arrived in front of Gu Xian. What followed was an extremely powerful attack. Facing the attacks of the 2, Gu Xian had no choice but to block. Taking advantage of the moment when Gu Xian blocked the attack, the other 2 cultivators had already bypassed Gu Xian like leopards and rushed towards Gu Yu and Zhuowen. Looking at the 2 people getting closer and closer, Gu Yu gritted her teeth and said, "Zhuowen, with your current strength, I'm afraid it's difficult for you to be a match for either one of them, so I'll be responsible for these 2. You must not be eliminated by these 2 people, otherwise your qualification to compete for the quota will be revoked." After Gu Yu finished speaking, she took the initiative to stand in front of Zhuowen. Her slender jade-like hands immediately intertwined and formed a series of hand seals. At the same time, surging yuan power violently poured out, finally forming a huge golden bell in front of her. Hearing this, Zhuowen could not help but be startled. He originally thought that his terrible performance would leave a bad impression in Gu Yu's heart and she would not care about him. However, the current situation greatly exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. Gu Yu actually stepped forward to block 2/3 stage of the corporeal yang realm cultivators for him. It should be known that Gu Yu was only at the 3rd stage of the corporeal yang realm. Against 1/3 stage of the corporeal yang realm cultivator, it would at most be a draw. If it was 1 against 2, the final result would be no surprise. Boom! The yuan power was just like a hurricane as it violently swept across the arena. The attacks of the 2 individuals that were rushing over ultimately collided violently against the golden bell. A muffled thunder-like sound also spread out. Kacha! Not long later, a clear sound slowly sounded. Immediately, threads of spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the surface of the enormous golden bell under the powerful attacks of the 2 of them. The cracks spread over the entire bell in a densely packed manner. Puff! Gu Yu spat out a mouthful of cherry-red blood and flew out like a withered flower. Just as she was about to fall out of the arena, a black figure appeared in front of her like a ghost. Then, a powerful arm grabbed Gu Yu's slender waist. With a slight tug, the arm brought Gu Yu back to the stage. Little Yu, on the other side of the arena, Gu Xian, who was fighting with the two young leaders of the Sky Howl sect, also noticed the situation on Gu Yu's side. When he saw that Gu Yu was actually injured, anger immediately rose in his heart. Damn it! You actually dare to hurt my sister. You guys are really bold. As the anger in his heart grew, Gu Xian's attacks became even more vicious. In just a few moves, the young leaders were beaten until they spat out blood. However, although the two young leaders were no match for Gu Xian, the two of them were like sticky candy. Even if they were injured by Gu Xian, they were still fearlessly entangled with Gu Xian, not allowing him to leave. For a moment, even Gu Xian couldn't get away. Seeing the other two participants of the Sky Howl sect getting closer and closer to Gu Yu, his heart was filled with helplessness and anxiety. However, when he saw Zhuowen catch Gu Yu, the worry in his heart faded a little. But soon, his heart clenched again. He had some doubts about whether a warrior who was only a half step into the corporeal Yang realm could withstand the attacks of 2/3 stage corporeal Yang realm warriors. No. I still have to rely on myself for this match. I have to end this quickly. Although Gu Xian was very anxious, his mind was very clear. He knew that as long as he could get away, Gu Yu and Zhuowen would naturally be safe with his help. Gu Xian. Your two burdens can only be eliminated. You don't have to worry. When the four of us join forces, your fate will be the same as those two burdens. You will also be eliminated. The young leader also saw the situation on the other side and immediately revealed a smug smile. When he thought that their small Sky Howl sect could actually eliminate the participants of the City Lord's mansion, his heart was filled with a strange sense of satisfaction. Bang bang. However, the smile of the young leader did not last for long. Two muffled sounds of bodies falling to the ground rang out. Soon after, two figures fell at his feet like dead dogs. When he lowered his head to take a look, the corner of the leading young man's eyes immediately twitched. This was because the two figures that had fallen at his feet were none other than his third brother and fourth brother. What's going on? A sliver of shock slowly rose on his face. Tilting his head to look, he saw a tall and straight figure quietly standing nearby. At the same time, a mental energy that was like a vast ocean instantly spread across the entire stage. Chapter 166. Gambling fight. An invisible spiritual power surged out of the youth's skinny body like stormy waves, spreading across the entire arena. The moment this mental energy surged out, the entire arena instantly became silent. Soon after, numerous gazes gathered towards the source of the mental energy. When these gazes discovered the source of the powerful mental energy, what caused these gazes to be startled was that the source was actually a rather unremarkable figure of a young man. However, when these gazes shifted upwards and saw the young man's face, the shock on their faces turned into shock. This was because the young man was the only person on the stage whose cultivation was only half a step into the corporeal Yang stage, Zhuowen. Ying Qianghua and his sister, who were silently standing on the other side of the stage, also turned their heads due to this mental energy. Looking at the straight figure, the effeminate Ying Qianghua pursed his lips and said in surprise, "So this unremarkable little brat is actually a rank 2 arcana master. How unexpected. Indeed, it seems like we were wrong. No wonder the City Lord's mansion sent a half-step corporeal young little brat to participate. It turns out that this little brat is actually a rank 2 arcana master." The tall and sturdy elder sister, Ying Hualan, narrowed her eyes and spoke in a low voice. Hu Wuying also glanced at Zhuowen in surprise. When he discovered that the source of the mental strength was Zhuowen, a thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. He muttered to himself, "No wonder he was able to break my fist so easily. It turns out that this guy is a grade 2 arcanist." On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess frowned and stared at the young man in the arena. She said to herself seriously, "It seems that what Sang Mu said is true. This guy's mental strength has really reached the second level. Lingju, do you think it's possible for this guy to get a spot this time? This kid's spiritual power is around the profound level 2 realm. There's still a long way to go before he reaches the perfect level. Judging from his spiritual power, his strength should be around the corporeal yang realm of level 7. It will be difficult for him to get a spot with this strength. However, this old man can see that this kid is not simple. He should have some extraordinary trump cards on him, so the result is somewhat unpredictable. Lingju lowered his head and pondered for a moment before replying respectfully. Looks like you have a pretty high opinion of this kid. Hee, that's exactly what I wanted. If this guy only had this much ability, wouldn't he be too bored? After all, I haven't even used my third brother's purple gold door yet. The ninth commandery princess said with a bright smile. Hearing the ninth commandery princess's words, Lingju's eyes showed a trace of pity. He knew that every time the ninth commandery princess showed a bright smile, someone would be unlucky. Now, it was obvious that the young man named Zhuowen was going to be unlucky. On the other side of the high platform, Yingshuelua, who was sitting leisurely, also looked at the young man in the arena with some surprise. At the same time, he noticed the smile on Gu Yutian's face and frowned slightly. I didn't expect the governor's mansion to have another arcana master. Moreover, this kid has reached the second level at such a young age. His talent is really terrifying. Even so, don't even think about stopping the Yin Sifting sect from getting all the spots in this competition. Since the Yin Sifting sect could make the governor's mansion lose a single spot last time, we can do it again this time. Speaking of this, Yingshuelua's mouth showed a trace of coldness. He could also see that Zhuowen's mental strength was only at the advanced level and had not reached the perfect level, so he was not afraid. Moreover, even if Zhuowen's mental strength had reached the perfect level, he was not afraid. After all, he still had a backup plan. In the arena, after Zhuowen defeated 2 of the contestants from the Sky Howling sect, the remaining 2 contestants lost their fighting spirit. They also knew that the Sky Howling sect had no hope in this competition, so they were defeated by Gu Xian in just a few rounds. After Gu Xian defeated the last contestant, the progress in the other 2 areas was basically about the same. Now, there were exactly 3 contestants left in the arena. These 3 were naturally the governor's mansion, the Yin Sifting sect, and the Tiger Ben sect. After defeating the last contestant from the Sky Howling sect, Gu Xian hurried to Gu Yu's side. After finding that Gu Yu was fine, his face showed a trace of relief. Turning his head, Gu Xian looked at Zhuowen seriously. Then, under Zhuowen's astonished gaze, he lowered his head and cupped his hands. Zhuowen, I have to thank you for this time. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid that little you would have suffered more than just an injury. Zhuowen waved his hand and looked at Gu Xian again. In his impression, Gu Xian was an extremely arrogant person. He rarely lowered his head to others, but now he lowered his head to him for Gu Yu. It seemed that Gu Xian doted on his sister very much. The first round of the battle royale naturally ended after the 3 major powers were decided. At this time, whether it was the contestants in the arena or the audience below the stage, they all looked at the 9th commandery princess who was at the top of the high platform. They really wanted to know how the 9th commandery princess would arrange the following battles. Under the gazes of so many people, the 9th commandery princess was not afraid at all. Her beautiful face had a trace of a smile as she opened her mouth again. The first round was really boring. There was no excitement at all. At this point, many people below the stage were speechless as they looked at the young girl on the stage. The rules of the battle were set by her, but now she was complaining about the contestants. Fortunately, the 3 major powers have been decided. The second round will decide who the contestants will belong to. How about this? Isn't there a total of 3 contestants in Rattan Armor City? Then these 3 contestants will be divided equally among the 3 powers. However, if the 3 powers want more contestants, then they will have to propose a battle. If one of them wins, then he will get the contestant. At this point, the ninth commandery princess nodded her head and the smile on her face became even brighter. After the ninth commandery princess's words, Guyu Tian and Ning Xuelua on the high platform stared at each other. Their eyes met at the same time, and a somewhat strange atmosphere slowly spread out as their eyes met. Looking at the two people who were facing each other, many people knew that the ninth commandery princess was trying to provoke the conflict between the Yin sifting sect and the city governor's mansion. After all, they all knew that there were many conflicts between the two powers. Now that the rules of the battle were set in the form of a battle royale, the two powers would probably be unscrupulous. I wonder, what do you think of my idea? Even the sovereign lord saw the sparks in the eyes of Guyu Tian and Ning Xuelua, and the smile on his face became even brighter. Of course, I have no objection. Guyu Tian said lightly. My pleasure. Ning Xuelua grinned coldly and said. However, at this moment, the leader of the Huban sect, Hu Shao, suddenly stood up and clasped his hands at the ninth commandery princess. He said respectfully, Honorable Commandery Princess, I wonder if we can abstain from the battle. We only need one contestant. The ninth Commandery Princess was stunned. She pondered for a moment and replied, if the other two powers agree, then you can abstain. However, if the other two powers disagree, even if the Huban sect voluntarily abstains, it will not be allowed. Hearing this, Hu Shao nodded respectfully again. Then, he clasped his hands at Guyu Tian and Ning Xuelua and said, Brother Gu, Brother Ing, we, the Huban sect, do not want to participate in the battle between the two powers. I wonder if you can give me some face. Guyu Tian laughed heartily and said, since Brother Hu has said so, I have to give you some face. Ning Xuelua hesitated for a moment and finally clasped his hands at Hu Shao and said, of course, we have to give you some face. After receiving Guyu Tian and Ning Xuelua's reply, Hu Shao heaved a sigh of relief. He thanked them gratefully and left the arena with Hu Wuying and the other two, returning to the high platform. Originally, Hu Shao would be satisfied if the Huban sect could obtain one of the contestants. After all, the foundation of the Huban sect was weaker than that of the governor's mansion and the Yin sifting sect. They could only cultivate Hu Wuying, who was at the 9th level of the corporeal Yang realm. Even if there were two contestants in front of them, it would only be a waste. Before the second round of the competition began, there was a 2-hour break. This was to allow the contestants who had consumed a lot of energy in the first round to have enough time to recover. Back on the high platform, Gu Xian, Gu Yu, and Zhuowen sat down and began to recuperate. They hoped to recover the yuan qi they had consumed as soon as possible. However, Zhuowen was just putting on an act. After all, he did not make any moves in the first round. He only used his mental power to defeat the two Sky Howl sect disciples at the end. He did not consume any energy at all. Guyu Tian glanced at the pale Guyu and said with a sigh, You, is already injured, so you don't have to participate in the second round. The second round can only rely on the two of you. Guyu also knew that her current state was indeed a little weak. Even if her strength was not damaged, she could not be a match for Ing Qianghua and Ing Hualan of the Yin sifting sect. After all, the two of them were at the 9th level of the corporeal Yang realm. Gu Xen, Zhuowen. I hope all of you can do your best in the upcoming battle. Ever since the Yin sifting sect defeated our city lord estate in the previous battle, they have become increasingly arrogant. If our city lord estate loses again, I'm afraid the Yin sifting sect won't even respect our city lord estate. Therefore, we must win this battle. Therefore, we must win this round, Guyu Tian said solemnly as he looked at the two people in front of him. Gu Xen nodded slightly. Her eyes were full of seriousness. As a member of the city lord's mansion, she would naturally spare no effort to win the competition. As for Zhuowen, he nodded lazily. He did not care about the city lord's mansion's honor. He only cared about the ownership of the quota. This battle was inevitable. After all, the city lord's mansion only had one quota. He could also feel the importance Gu Yutian placed on Gu Xian. Chapter 167. Ying Qianghua, whose strength had soared. Dong! A bell rang from afar. The ninth commandery princess, who was sitting at the top of the platform, stood up. Her clear voice was heard as well. Since the Huban sect has forfeited, only the city lord's manor and the Yin sifting sect remain. Let the second round begin. Let me make this clear first. The condition for winning the second round is to defeat all of the opponents. Defeating just one person won't count. Whoosh! A strong figure came to the center of the arena instantly, revealing a cold face and silver hair. It was Lingju, who had been standing behind the ninth commandery princess. The second round of the bet will be decided by this old man. If both parties have no objections, let's begin. Lingju waved his right hand gently as he spoke in an indifferent manner. I'll go first. She had heard from her father that Brother Zhuo really needed this slot. In order to thank you for saving my sister just now, I will fight for this spot for you, and you may not need to do anything. On the high platform, Gu Xian slowly stood up and glanced at Zhuowen, who was not far away, with a proud look on her face. Since Xian has volunteered, you should go first. Gu Yutian nodded and spoke in a serious tone. Although you are quite strong and have a low-grade spirit treasure, you can't be careless. After all, the two contestants sent by the Yin sifting sect are not to be trifled with. Gu Xian nodded. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and flew towards the arena like a vigorous bird. At the same time, a figure flew out from the Yin sifting sect's side. This figure had his fingers pinched together like an orchid, and his cheeks were flushed red. It was the effeminate Ying Qianghua. Father! Do you feel that big bro will win this time? Beside Gu Yuetian, the rather pale-looking Gu Yu worriedly asked. Even though she was very confident in Gu Xian's strength, the Yin sifting sect's representative wasn't any weaker than Gu Xian either. Actually, even I am not certain whether Xian can win. Let's just wait and see. Gu Yutian muttered as he cast his gaze towards the arena. When Gu Xian left, Zhuo Wen's eyes fell on Ying Xuelua, who was not far away. When he saw the faint smile on Ying Xuelua's face, an ominous premonition slowly rose in his heart. Yo! You sent our young master Gu Xian for the first match. I'm really flattered. Ying Qianghua twisted his body and laughed while covering his mouth. I alone am enough. Gu Xian smiled faintly as she said, we don't have to go through so much trouble to deal with your Yin sifting sect. Gongzi Gu Xian, are you very confident? However, I wonder if you'll still be able to show such an arrogant expression after I beat you to the ground? Ying Qianghua chuckled. Then, with a light bounce of his feet, he disappeared from the spot like a ghost. When he reappeared, he was already behind Gu Xian. A pair of sharp claws suddenly shot out from his fingertips. Immediately, these sharp claws mercilessly clawed at the back of Gu Xian's head. Gu Xian's head would definitely be cracked if he was caught by these claws. Gu Xian snorted coldly and stomped her foot on the ground. Her entire body seemed to twist and turn to the side, barely dodging Ying Qianghua's sharp claws. Let's end this quickly. I still have to spend some time to defeat your sister. After dodging Ying Qianghua's attack, Gu Xian instantly took out a golden halo from the Qiankuan bag at her waist. Then, with a sudden shift of her feet, she circled behind Ying Qianghua. Her right hand turned into a claw and fiercely grasped Ying Qianghua's calf. Ying Qianghua was shocked and tried to stretch out his leg to break free. However, Gu Xian's claw was like an iron hoop, firmly grasping his calf in her hand. Ying Qianghua, this is the end. The corners of Gu Xian's mouth curled into a sneer. Then, the golden halo in her other hand suddenly emitted a golden light. With a swoosh, she smashed it towards Ying Qianghua's chest. Boom! A blazing golden light slowly rose. Immediately, a figure suddenly flew out. After drawing a scar that was more than 10 meters long on the arena, it coincidentally stopped at the edge of the arena. This figure was Ying Qianghua of the Yin sifting sect. At this time, Ying Qianghua's body was constantly twitching, and the aura on his body had become very weak. Blood had gathered like a stream under his body. Seeing that Gu Xian had defeated Ying Qianghua of the Yin sifting sect in an instant, there was a burst of cheers from the high platform where the City Lord Mansion's forces were located. Even Gu Yu and Gu Yu Tian showed a hint of joy on their faces. Only Zhuowen frowned slightly. He looked at Ying Xuelua again. Zhuowen saw that Ying Xuelua's expression was still calm. In fact, it was so calm that it was a little scary. He didn't seem to be worried about Ying Qianghua being defeated in an instant. On the arena, Gu Xian glanced at Ying Qianghua, who was curled up in the corner of the arena. Then, she curled her lips and looked in the direction of the Yin sifting sect. She said indifferently, "It seems that the Yin sifting sect is a bunch of paper tigers. Since Ying Qianghua has been defeated by me, Ying Hualan, hurry up and come down." However, Gu Xian soon discovered that something was wrong. Ying Hualan, who was on the high platform, didn't move at all. Instead, she crossed her arms and stared at Gu Xian below with a mocking gaze. "Young Master Gu Xian, it's a little too early to say that it's over." A gloomy voice suddenly came from behind. Gu Xian turned around and saw Ying Qianghua's sinister smile. Her pupils couldn't help but shrink. In an instant, Ying Qianghua's sharp claws viciously clawed at Gu Xian's head once again. "What a tenacious fellow. Then, I'll send you off the stage early." The surprise on Gu Xian's face disappeared in a flash. Then, he raised the diamond bracelet on his right hand and blocked Ying Qianghua's claws. Boom! A sound like muffled thunder suddenly resounded throughout the arena. Then, Gu Xian's eyes suddenly popped out. He felt the web between his thumb and forefinger go numb. Then, a huge force instantly pushed him back. This fellow's strength is much stronger than before. Gu Xian groaned and was forced back a dozen steps by this huge force. Then, he raised his head and looked at Ying Qianghua, who was standing quietly not far away, in horror. At this moment, apart from some bloodstains on Ying Qianghua's clothes, his face was extremely rosy. There was no sign of the dispirited look he had when he fell to the ground. Moreover, Gu Xian was surprised that the aura emitted from Ying Qianghua's body seemed to be stronger than before. It seems that young Master Gu Xian can't end this quickly. I'm not going to play with you anymore. Next, I'll finish you off. Ying Qianghua raised one of his fingers and smiled. Then, his face instantly became much colder. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura burst out from his body. Creak! On the high platform, Gu Yutian's hands suddenly clenched. He looked at Ying Qianghua in disbelief and said with trembling lips, "This aura is actually at the half-step King Zhao realm. It turns out that this person has been hiding his strength. His true strength has actually reached this level. Then what should we do? Big Brother is only at the 9th stage of the corporeal Yang realm, which is one stage lower than the half-step King Zhao realm. It seems that it will be a bit difficult for him to deal with Ying Qianghua." Gu Yu's face turned pale. She also didn't expect such an unforeseen event. After Ying Qianghua revealed his half-step King Zhao realm aura, the crowd outside the arena boiled over. Many factions looked at Ying Qianghua in disbelief. They didn't expect the Yin sifting sect to be able to nurture such a young expert at the half-step King Zhao realm. The Yin sifting sect really hid their strength well. There's actually a half-step King Zhao realm cultivator in the younger generation. Doesn't that mean that the Yin sifting sect's foundation is even stronger than the City Lord's mansion? It seems that Gu Xian is doomed this time. I'm afraid the City Lord's mansion is going to lose this time. If the City Lord's mansion loses this time, it will have an indelible impact on the City Lord's mansion's reputation and status. As soon as Ying Qianghua revealed his half-step Zhao King realm strength, the entire high platform went into an uproar. Many people didn't expect the Yin-sifting sect to send out a half-step Zhao King realm disciple. Somewhere on the high platform, Hu Shao looked at Ying Qianghua and sighed. I really didn't expect the Yin-sifting sect's foundation to be so deep. It seems that the Yin-sifting sect obtained a lot of benefits from the last competition. It's a good thing that our Huban sect forfeited in time. Otherwise, we might not even be able to keep our spot. The city lord's mansion's chances of winning this time are a little slim. Even Gu Xian might not be a match for a half-step bright king realm cultivator. Hu Wuying, who was beside Hu Shao, shook his head and sighed. At this point, his gaze shifted to a young man on another high platform. When he saw the calm expression on the young man's face, he revealed a hint of surprise. Things have already reached such a stage. What is the reason for this fellow to still be so calm? Hu Wuying fell into deep thought as he looked at Zhuo Wen, who was standing not far away, who was as calm as an ancient well. I'll finish you in one move. Young master hit me so hard just now, so I'll naturally return the favor. A cold glint flashed across Ying Qianghua's eyes. Soon after, an endless amount of yuan power suddenly rose from within his body. Soon after, these powerful yuan power, which was just like a stormy sea, suddenly gathered behind him and formed a huge sharp claw that was dozens of feet long. The surface of the sharp claw emitted a dense bloody glow, which made it look rather terrifying. Blood claw. A feminine voice slowly sounded. Immediately, Ying Qianghua's right hand suddenly pressed downwards. The huge blood claw behind him was just like a black cloud as it violently pressed down on Gu Xian. Gu Xian clenched his teeth. He knew that he had no other choice. He didn't expect Ying Qianghua to suddenly erupt with the strength of a half-step King Zhao realm cultivator. However, he didn't have the time to think too much. He swung the Vajra bracelet with his right hand and channeled the elemental energy in his body into the Vajra bracelet. This diamond bracelet was a low-grade spirit treasure that Gu Yutian gave him. Its power was considered quite good among low-grade spirit treasures. Chapter 168. A crushing defeat. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, the blood claw and the diamond ring finally collided fiercely in the air. Then, an endless amount of astral wind rose up in the arena. Then, a blazing blood light and golden light mixed and exploded. Many of the onlookers subconsciously closed their eyes. Crack! A crisp sound suddenly rang out, immediately attracting everyone's attention. In the air, the surface of the dazzling diamond ring actually showed traces of cracks. Moreover, as the crisp sound gradually grew louder, the cracks became deeper and deeper. Finally, the huge diamond ring, under everyone's shocked gazes, collapsed with a loud bang. Bang! A figure suddenly flew out, and finally smashed into the hard bluestone floor of the arena, creating a huge deep pit. Traces of dust immediately swept up because of this. On the high platform, Gu Yutian's face suddenly became incomparably pale. Looking at the dispirited figure in the crater, he knew that Gu Xian had been defeated. Big brother, he lost. Gu Yu's pretty face was also pale. She also didn't expect Gu Xian to be defeated. She knew that after this battle, perhaps her proud and arrogant big brother would find it hard to accept. Gu Xian's talent and strength were one of the best in the entire Rattan Armor City. He had always been regarded as the #1 person of the younger generation in Rattan Armor City. Under the influence of so many halos, Gu Xian's personality naturally became cold and arrogant. No one had expected Gu Xian's defeat this time around. Moreover, it was just as Ying Huaqiang had said. Gu Xian had been finished off by him in a single move. It was likely that the proud and arrogant Gu Xian would find it difficult to accept such a crushing defeat. Yo! Young Master Gu Xian, why are you so weak? Didn't you arrogantly say that you were going to defeat me? Why can't you even take one move from me now? A figure slowly walked out from the dust and arrived in front of the crater. Ying Huaqiang covered his mouth and laughed. His mocking voice resounded throughout the entire arena. looks like he went a little too hard. Let me see where you are injured, young master. Ing Qianghua smiled pretentiously. His right hand shot out like lightning and grabbed Gu Xian's neck. He lifted her like a rooster. It was obvious that Ing Qianghua was deliberately humiliating her. Holding Gu Xian in his hand, Ing Qianghua circled around as if he was demonstrating his power, showing Gu Xian's painful and humiliated expression to all the audience. Gu Xian's face was completely pale. Because Ing Qianghua was holding him by the neck, the feeling of suffocation caused the veins on his forehead to bulge, making him look extremely ferocious. Looking at Gu Xian's miserable appearance, the high platform of the city lord's mansion suddenly fell into silence. Many people revealed a trace of humiliation in their eyes. After all, Gu Xian was the strongest contestant sent out by the city lord's mansion. Moreover, as the eldest son of Gu Yutian, he also represented the glory of the city lord's mansion. However, such a representative figure was now being held by the neck like a rooster, unable to resist at all. Ing Qianghua, I will definitely kill you. Gu Xian spat out a mouthful of bloody phlegm, which happened to land on Ing Qianghua's face. Gu Xian said with a cold expression. Ah! Damn it, you actually dare to dirty my delicate little face. It seems that you are courting death. Ing Qianghua screamed. His eyes also turned cold, and traces of killing intent gradually rose. His right hand turned into a claw, and at the speed of a meteor, he fiercely tapped Gu Xian's limbs. The ear-piercing sound of bones breaking suddenly rang out, followed by a miserable howl from Gu Xian. Her limbs suddenly fell down powerlessly. Obviously, the bones in her limbs had been shattered. Gu Yutian stood up with a whoosh, and his eyes suddenly turned red. Old dog Ing, why don't you tell your son to stop? Our city lord's mansion admits defeat. Gu Xian was his most valued son, and at the same time, his successor as the city lord. He had placed a lot of hopes on Gu Xian. Now that he saw his son's limbs being mercilessly destroyed, even though Gu Yutian was a steady person, he couldn't help but have the impulse to go berserk at this moment. City Lord Gu, you are really rude. The host of this bet hasn't admitted defeat, right? Even if you admit defeat, it doesn't count. Unless young Master Gu Xian takes the initiative to admit defeat. Ing Shuolua slowly stood up, staring at Gu Yutian with a mocking gaze, and said unhurriedly. Old dog Ing, if you still don't tell your son to stop, then don't blame me for officially declaring war on your Yin-sifting sect on behalf of the city lord's mansion. If Xian, is really unlucky, I will raise your Yin-sifting sect to the ground even if both sides suffer losses. Gu Yutian's eyes were red, and he roared loudly. When Ing Shuolua heard this, his expression suddenly changed. He didn't expect Gu Yutian to be so bold. For Gu Xian, he dared to mobilize the city lord's mansion's power and declare war on the Yin-sifting sect. Although the Yin-sifting sect's strength was not much weaker than the city lord's mansion, once the two forces went to war, it would inevitably result in both sides suffering losses. At that time, it was very likely that other forces would take advantage of the situation. After thinking about it again and again, Ing Shuolua smiled and said, Qianghua, since Gu Yutian has taken the initiative to admit defeat, then stop. You should have a good fight. As soon as Ing Shuolua's words came out, Ing Qianghua, who was in the ring with a ferocious face, suddenly stopped. He looked at Ing Shuolua and screamed, Father, this bastard actually dirted my little face. This is absolutely intolerable. I must kill him. Ing Shuolua frowned slightly, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. He said in a cold voice, Don't you even listen to your father's words? Ing Qianghua was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Ing Shuolua again, and finally compromised. He kicked Gu Xian in the chest and said coldly, Since it's my father's order, I'll spare you this time. You know, even if you have 10 lives, it won't be enough to compensate for her face. Gu Xian's body flew out of the ring like a withered leaf, but the moment she fell to the ground, she was caught in the hands of Gu Yutian. Looking at Gu Xian, who was almost dying in his arms, Gu Tian's anger grew stronger. The Yin sifting sect had no intention of showing any mercy. If he hadn't stopped them just now, Gu Xian would have been dead by now. Father. I'm sorry. I've lost this time. Gu Xian, who was curled up in Gu Yuetian's embrace, revealed a defeated expression on her pale face as she mournfully said. Don't talk. You've lost this time. As long as you're fine. A forced smile appeared on Gu Tian's face. Then, he brought the severely injured Gu Xian back to the high platform. On the high platform, Zhuowen looked at the dying Gu Xian. Ying Qianghua's attitude just now really made Zhuowen unhappy. Although he didn't have a deep friendship with Gu Xian and he was quite arrogant, he was at least a person who valued friendship. This could be seen from the change in his attitude towards Zhuowen after he saved Gu Yu. Looking at the dying Gu Xian in Gu Tian's arms, everyone on the high platform fell into silence. Gu Xian was, after all, the #1 young expert in the City Lord Mansion. Everyone had high hopes for him, but now Gu Xian's crushing defeat made everyone feel quite uncomfortable. City Lord, young Master Gu Xian has been defeated. Don't tell me that our City Lord's mansion is going to be defeated again in this quota battle. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Soon after, it attracted the agreement of many people. Taking in a deep breath, Gu Tian's eyes shone brightly as he stared at the youth nearby. With a somewhat bitter smile, he said, Zhuowen, if it was you, do you have the confidence to defeat Ying Qianghua? As Gu Yuetian's words left his mouth, the gazes of the other people on the high platform all gathered on Zhuowen's body. They knew that the key to the City Lord Manor's victory this time had already landed on the youth before them. Even Gu Yu's beautiful eyes flashed, and her misty eyes were full of eagerness as she looked at the youth. I have 80% confidence in defeating that sissy. Zhuowen stood up slowly and said with a faint smile. As soon as Zhuowen said this, the field suddenly became silent. The silence lasted for a moment, and Gu Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. He solemnly bowed his head and said sincerely, Zhuowen, the next battle depends on you. I know you have a lot of trump cards, but you still have to be careful. Zhuowen nodded slightly and turned his head to look at the high platform where Ying Xuelua was, with a cold smile on his face. At the same time, Ying Xuelua laughed heartily. Soon after, he looked towards Gu Yuetian and said in an indifferent tone, Lord Gu, the most outstanding genius of your City Lord Mansion has also been defeated. In that case, there's no need for the following matches to avoid wasting time. As for the City Lord Mansion's quota, this old man will gladly accept it. Old man, don't look down on people. Your grandfather hasn't appeared yet, so why are you in such a hurry? The next battle will continue as usual. A clear and melodious voice suddenly rang out, interrupting Ying Xuelua's words. Immediately, a young figure suddenly rushed onto the arena under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Looking at the figure in the arena, the smile on Ying Xuelua's face gradually faded, and a trace of coldness rose in his eyes. He didn't care that Gu Tian called him an old man. After all, Gu Tian's cultivation was higher than his. However, the youth in front of him dared to call him that, which made the corner of Ying Xuelua's eyes twitch. He was so angry that he laughed and said, What an uneducated brat. I think you are tired of living. Does your grandfather need to use honorifics to call you a grandson? I don't want to listen to your nonsense. The City Lord Mansion hasn't lost yet. If your two bastards can defeat me, then your Yin sifting sect will win. Do you understand? Zhuowen said mercilessly in the arena. The moment Zhuowen said those words, the audience fell silent. No one had expected that a young man would dare to yell at a human king like Shui Luo without any scruples. Chapter 169. Arrogant, this guy has quite a character. Even in front of a human king, he doesn't show any mercy. I quite like his character. On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess stared at the young man standing in the arena and chuckled. Su Chang, who had been standing behind her, saw the smile on the ninth commandery princess's face, and his face became gloomier. This was the first time he had seen the ninth commandery princess show such an appreciative smile. What made him even more unhappy was that the ninth commandery princess's smile was for Zhuo Wen. Bang! Ing Xuelua slammed his hand on the tea table beside him. His eyes were filled with rage. If it were not for the rule that the experts of the older generation were not allowed to fight, he would have killed the arrogant young man in the arena. Father, leave this reckless little brat to me. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Ing Qianghua's feminine voice rang out slowly as he came to Ing Xuelua's side. Qianhua, there's no need to show mercy. Cripple this arrogant boy for me. Ing Xuelua's face was extremely gloomy. He grinned and said coldly. That's only natural. You should know that this little brat didn't just scold you, father. He even scolded me and big sister. In a while, I will properly educate this little brat. Ing Qianghua raised his orchid fingers and covered his mouth as he laughed. After he finished speaking, Ing Qianghua lightly stepped on the ground. His entire body was like a graceful swallow as he landed on the stage. Brat, do you think that you're invincible just because you have level 2 mental strength? You should know that even the strongest person in your city lord's mansion, Gu Xian, is no match for me. Do you think you can defeat me? Ing Qianghua looked down at Zhuowen condescendingly as he covered his mouth and sneered. A transvestite like you who is neither male nor female is quite confident. Just by looking at you, I can tell that you are a coward. Do you think that I will be afraid of trash like you? Zhuowen stood there quietly and said without any change in his expression. At this time, the audience was boiling again because Zhuowen had taken the initiative to appear in the arena. Many people looked at Zhuowen's back with some doubts. In their opinion, the strongest person in the city lord's mansion, Gu Xian, was defeated. Was it useful to send a young man whose cultivation was not as good as Gu Xian? It seems that the city lord's mansion has given up on themselves. Are they still holding on to their last hope? Although this young man is level 2 Arcanist Think Studio, Editor's Picks, Transvestite Arcanist, King Arcanist's Realm, Ing, Transvestite. I really don't understand what the City Lord Mansion is thinking. Gu Xian's defeat has already explained everything. Isn't sending this young man to his death? Voices of discussion instantly exploded in the audience. As the voices of discussion continued to grow, countless doubtful gazes were cast on the arena, on the figure of the young man who stood quietly on the arena. However, when the questioning voices from below the stage reached its peak, some of the forces from the main city of Rattan Armor City began to refute. Amidst this refutation, the recent rumors about Zhuo Wen in Rattan Armor City also began to spread. What do you guys know? Seriously speaking, young Master Zhuowen is the #1 expert of the younger generation in our Rattan Armor City. He has a record of killing a King Realm cultivator. Can those bastards from the Yin Sifting sect achieve this? It was unknown who shouted this sentence, but the audience instantly became silent. Whoosh! Whoosh! After the silence, countless gazes once again gathered on the arena, on the back of the young man. This young man had once killed a King Realm cultivator. Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? On the arena, Ing Qianghua also heard the words of the person who had just spoken. His feminine face was instantly stunned for a moment, but soon after, he covered his mouth and laughed loudly. His right hand, which was curled up like an orchid, pointed at Zhuowen and said mockingly, "Looks like the city lord's mansion has really declined. Now that you're about to lose, you actually made up such a ridiculous lie. Are you really so naive to think that you can win with a few fallacies?" When Ing Qianghua's words came out, the audience below the stage roared with laughter. Many people pointed at Zhuo Wen's back with disdain in their eyes. Ignoring the countless mocking gazes from below the arena, as well as Ing Qianghua's face full of mockery, Zhuo Wen cupped his hands towards Lingju, who had an indifferent expression on his face, and said indifferently, "Sir, can we start the battle now?" Lingju was stunned. He did not expect that the young man in front of him was not the slightest bit afraid when facing a half-step king realm cultivator. He could see that the indifference on the young man's face was not an act, but an indifference that came from the bottom of his heart. If the two of you have no objections, the battle can naturally begin. As he spoke, Lingju waved his hand and said with an indifferent expression. You're quite brave. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when I twist off your head later. Ying Qianghua licked his lips and said with a sinister smile. Brat, if you can withstand one move from me, then you're quite capable. But in my opinion, you won't even be able to withstand one move, so you'd better die obediently. Ying Qianghua sneered. He stomped his foot and his entire body flew straight forward. The ear-piercing sound of wind breaking was like muffled thunder, exploding in the entire arena. When Ying Qianghua rushed straight towards Zhuowen like a storm, countless people below the arena also cast their gazes towards Zhuowen, who was not far away. However, the moment they saw Zhuowen, a trace of astonishment appeared in their eyes. This was because Zhuowen, who was standing on the arena, was actually standing there in a daze. He did not dodge or attack, as if he was scared silly and did not move at all. What's wrong with this brat? He was so arrogant and insufferably arrogant just a moment ago. Why is he not moving now? Could it be that he's scared silly? Looks like he's really a brat who only looks strong on the outside but is actually weak on the inside. Anyone can play with words, but this brat's mouth is so venomous. I'm afraid Ying Qianghua won't show any mercy. When they saw Zhuo Wen's stunned expression, the audience below the stage burst into loud laughter, as well as countless discussions that were filled with ridicule. But was Zhuo Wen really scared out of his wits like they said? The answer was of course no. It was just that Zhuo Wen was currently concentrating on activating the holy ice flame symbol. After the last battle with Lu Qingshang, Zhuo Wen was much more careful when activating the holy ice flame symbol. If he swaggered out the holy ice flame symbol, perhaps some knowledgeable people would recognize it. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. Once the holy ice flame symbol was exposed, Zhuo Wen's fate would be to become the enemy of the whole world. At that time, not only would the Zhuo family face a disaster, but it would also be difficult to find a place to stay. Zhuo Wen was very clear about how attractive the holy ice flame symbol was to those supreme experts, so unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not expose the holy ice flame symbol on his body. The method to conceal the holy ice flame symbol on the back of his hand naturally relied on Xiao Hei's help. The moment when Zhuo Wen stood there in a daze was actually Xiao Hei secretly casting a spell to conceal the holy ice flame symbol on the back of his hand. At this moment, Ying Qianghua had already arrived above Zhuo Wen's head. He glanced at the youth who was still in a daze and muttered to himself in a slightly bored manner, I originally thought that you would be able to play with me for a while longer. Now, it seems like you're just a silver spear with a wax head. Since that's the case, I'll send you on your way. Speaking until here, Ying Qianghua suddenly waved both of his hands, and an endless amount of origin energy suddenly burst out from his body. As the origin energy continued to gather, a huge blood-red claw that was like a mountain condensed behind him. Farewell. Taking one last look at the youth below, Ying Qianghua's claw suddenly pressed down. Then, the huge blood-red claw poured down in torrents, and an endless amount of astral wind swept out as it fell, forming a huge tornado in the middle of the stage that shot straight to the horizon. Blood claw, kill. Rumble. It was as if countless huge thunderbolts had fallen. Immediately, the entire arena resounded. Invisible ripples accompanied the loud noise and spread out in all directions. Many of the martial warriors below the stage involuntarily retreated under the ripples. What a terrifying power! The blood claw that Ying Qianghua used this time was even stronger than the one he used to defeat Gu Xian. It seems that Zhuo Wen's corpse is already gone. The City Lord Mansion has really miscalculated. To actually send out such a weakling, I really don't know what City Lord Gu is thinking. Sigh. I didn't expect the Yin Sifting sect to defeat the City Lord Mansion this time. Does this mean that the Yin Sifting sect's strength will surpass the City Lord Mansion's? After the blood claw landed, sighs rang out one after another. The competition for a spot was not only a matter of honor, but also the allocation of resources. In the Origin Energy Tower battle, once a disciple entered the top 1,000 in the final ranking, they would receive a certain amount of resources from the House of Marquis Qin as a reward. Coincidentally, after the Yin Sifting sect obtained 3 spots in the last competition, one of their disciples miraculously entered the top 1,000 in the Origin Energy Tower and received a reward from the House of Marquis Qin. This was also the reason why the Yin Sifting sect was able to nurture 2 half-step Zhao King realm cultivators. On the high platform, Gu Tian's hands clenched. He didn't expect Zhuowen to stand there like a fool and allowing Qianghua to attack. This kind of situation was already beyond his expectations. Will Zhuowen be alright? Guyu covered her mouth with her jade-like hand. Her face turned incomparably pale as she asked in a trembling voice. Sigh. I'm afraid this fellow is doomed. Gu Xian, who was sitting on the far side, said with a sigh. His injuries were quite serious. He was well aware of the power of Ying Qianghua's blood claw. Even a low-grade spirit treasure, the diamond ring, would find it difficult to resist that kind of power. That was easy. This brat can't even withstand a single blow. Ying Qianghua slowly landed on the stage and cracked his neck with a faint smile. Ying Qianghua, your attack is really soft. It doesn't seem to hurt or even tickle my body. Just as Ying Qianghua's smile became even more brilliant, a voice slowly drifted over. The smile that was just about to blossom on his face instantly withered. Chapter 170. Defeated in one move. Sizzle sizzle. A charred sound slowly sounded over the entire arena. Immediately, a figure slowly stepped out from the dust. A heat that was difficult to hide suddenly rose over the entire space following the slow appearance of this figure. The surrounding air also began to boil like steam. Swoosh swoosh. Numerous gazes looked at this black human figure that had appeared. They involuntarily inhaled a breath of cold air when they saw this black human figure clearly. This was because they were shocked to discover that the surroundings of this human figure were actually covered by a dense black flame. The sudden rise in temperature was clearly caused by this black flame. This is the Nirvana demon flame. At the edge of the arena, Lingjiu, who originally had an indifferent expression, involuntarily muttered to himself with a slightly changed expression when his eyes stared at the black flame on the human figure's body. You are Zhuowen. Ying Qianghua's eyes hardened as he stared at the human figure in front of him, whose entire body was covered by the black flame. Who else can it be other than the old me? Damn transvestite, you had a great time fighting earlier, right? Now, it should be my turn. Zhuowen clenched his fist slightly. A spark-like black flame immediately shot out. Ying Qianghua's face twitched. For some unknown reason, he was able to sense that there was an extremely dangerous aura on Zhuowen's body at this moment. Although the aura on Zhuowen's body was only at the half-step to the corporeal yang stage, it still gave Ying Qianghua an extremely dangerous feeling. This kind of feeling did not originate from Zhuowen's body. Instead, it came from the strange black flame that adhered to the surface of Zhuowen's body. Although I don't know what the black flame on your body is, you are still far from defeating me. However, I'm afraid that you are still far from being able to defeat me. Your fate will ultimately be the same as Gu Xian's. Ying Qianghua quickly recovered his calm and laughed coldly. You will beat me until even your mother cannot recognize you in a while, you damn transvestite. Zhuowen did not wish to talk nonsense with Ying Qianghua. His feet suddenly stomped on the ground and an endless amount of black flame suddenly surged out from his body. The green rock under his feet gradually melted into liquid under the frightening temperature of the black flame. Whoosh! At this moment, Zhuowen was like a shooting star. His entire body was covered in black flames as he suddenly rushed towards Ying Qianghua. Wherever he passed, countless black sparks would burst forth like fireworks. Hearing Zhuowen's insulting words, Ying Qianghua's face immediately flushed red. These words were really a little vicious. Even his mother was scolded. Ing Xuelua's expression became extremely gloomy after hearing Zhuowen's curse. However, his eyes were filled with some fear as he looked at the Nirvana demon flame on the surface of the former's body. This flame should be the brat's trump card. What a strange brat. Not only is he a level 2 arcanist, but he also possesses such a strange flame. Moreover, this black flame is not an ordinary flame, yet this brat can use it so freely. We have underestimated this brat. Ing Xuelua whispered coldly. I wonder if little brother can block this fellow's black flame. It seems that this fellow's black flame is quite strange. Ing Hualan, who had a calm expression, frowned and opened her mouth to speak. Qianghua is not so easy to deal with. Let's wait and see. Ing Xuelua shook his head and spoke in a dark voice. Damn brat, I will definitely kill you. Ing Qianghua's eyes were bright red. Fingernails that were over a foot long extended from the fingertips of his hands. After which, both of his claws gently cut through the empty space. Immediately, the surrounding yuan power boiled. Immediately, countless yuan power chi blades were emitted from his fingernails. 10,000 claws gouging heart. A low roar was emitted from Ing Qianghua's throat. Immediately, countless tiny chi blades were agglomerated between his claws. These chi blades were merely the size of a fingernail. A trace of cold light burst out from Ing Qianghua's eyes. Immediately, Ing Qianghua pushed his claws forward. Then, the countless chi blades between his claws suddenly swept straight toward Zhuowen. The moment Ing Qianghua pushed out these tiny chi blades, they expanded countless times in an instant. They turned into huge chi blades that were as tall as a person. Countless huge chi blades turned into a constantly rotating hurricane above the arena. The hurricane was full of densely packed huge chi blades. The hurricane swept straight toward Zhuowen, intending to swallow him whole. Zhuowen snorted coldly. Instead of slowing down, he increased his speed and rushed into the hurricane in a way that seemed to be courting death in the eyes of everyone. Boom! However, what surprised everyone was that after Zhuowen rushed into the hurricane, a monstrous pillar of fire rose into the sky and tore the hurricane apart in an instant. Swoosh! In an instant, the hurricane was torn apart. A figure covered in black flames suddenly rushed out. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, the figure's right hand suddenly lifted Ing Qianghua's collar. Then, with a sudden swing, he threw Ing Qianghua onto the hard stone platform of the arena. Boom! Ing Qianghua was smashed into the ground by Zhuowen without any resistance. With a bang, a 2-meter deep crater was created. The funny thing was that Ing Qianghua's head was embedded in the ground. Only the lower half of his body was left on the stone platform. His legs were constantly swaying, like a living fish on a chopping board. From the moment Ing Qianghua released the chi blades to when he was instantly dealt with by Zhuowen, it was only a blink of an eye. When everyone reacted, they were shocked to find that Ing Qianghua, who was incomparably powerful a moment ago, was now embedded into the ground in a somewhat humiliating manner. Quite a number of people below the stage involuntarily laughed as they looked at the pair of repeatedly swaying legs on the stage. However, after laughing, the gazes that everyone used to look at the figure on the stage, whose entire body was burning with black flames, immediately became different. They finally understood why the youth was so arrogant at the beginning. It was because the youth had the capital to be arrogant. Ing Qianghua was actually dealt with so easily. Isn't this a little too fast? On the high platform, Gu Xian rubbed his eyes and looked at the swaying legs on the arena in disbelief. When he looked at the young figure standing quietly on the arena, he knew that what he saw was not an illusion. I didn't expect that he could deal with a warrior who was half a step into the Zhao King realm so easily. Gu Xian slowly calmed down and looked at the young man in the arena. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He still remembered the battle in the market half a year ago. At that time, he didn't put the youth in front of him in his eyes. At that time, he followed his father, Guyu Tian, to the god's stone square and looked down on the youth in front of him. However, half a year later, the youth's strength had actually grown to such a terrifying extent. At this time, he could only look up at the youth that he didn't put in his eyes at that time. Lingju looked at the youth on the arena with surprise. He also didn't expect that the youth in front of him would be able to deal with Ying Qianghua so easily. Lingju glanced indifferently at the swaying legs not far away and said indifferently, "The city lord's mansion wins this round." As soon as Lingju said this, there was a burst of cheers on the high platform on Guyu Tian's side. Almost everyone stood up and jumped with excitement. Zhuowen's victory undoubtedly restored the face of Gu Xian when he was defeated. Guyu Tian suddenly stood up and said excitedly, "I really didn't misjudge Zhuowen. When I heard that he had killed Wang Yuanqing and Chen Sheng, I didn't believe it. Now it seems that it wasn't a lie." Beside him, Guyu also stood up. Her watery eyes stared straight at the figure of the youth on the stage that was the center of attention of tens of thousands of people. Crack! Ying Xuelua suddenly crushed the teacup in his hand, and his eyes suddenly popped out of their sockets. He stared at the arena in disbelief and muttered to himself, he defeated Qianghua with only one move. Where did this kid come from? How could he hide such a powerful strength? Father, what should we do next? My strength is only slightly higher than Qianghua's. With the strength that the kid has shown, even if I use all my strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to defeat him. Ying Hualan's face was no longer calm. Her thigh-thick arms suddenly clenched into a fist, and her voice trembled. The Yin sifting sect has been preparing for this competition for a long time. I will not allow any mistakes. Hualan, we can only use the yin-yang dual condensation technique. This time, you will be the carrier. Ying Xuelua said in a deep voice. Father. If we use the yin-yang dual condensation technique, I'm afraid brother will. Ying Hualan's expression changed and she hesitated. Humph. We can't let the city lord's mansion win this competition. Otherwise, the city lord's mansion will pull us further and further away. For the sake of the sect, Qianghua should be sacrificed. Why? Are you not willing? Ying Xuelua looked at Ying Hualan with red eyes and said eerily. Ying Hualan's expression turned cold. She finally lowered her head and said softly, I will follow father's arrangement. The Yin sifting sect admits defeat. Let Qianghua out. Glancing at Ying Hualan, Ying Xuelua suddenly stood up and stared coldly at Zhuowen in the arena. Since you have admitted defeat, you will naturally be let go. On the arena, Zhuowen smiled faintly and immediately pulled Ying Qianghua out of the ground. Zhuowen, you bastard, you hit my head on purpose, didn't you? I will not let you go. As soon as Ying Qianghua came out, he roared and pounced. It seems that the lesson was not enough. Then I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your father. Zhuo Wenwei leaned to the side and dodged Ying Qianghua's pounce. Soon after, her right hand grabbed the back of Ying Qianghua's collar and pulled him in front of her. Then, her fist smashed down on Ying Qianghua's face. Ah! My nose is bleeding. Ying Qianghua covered his nose and slowly retreated. His voice was even more miserable. His voice was like an old woman in her 70s being raped. It made one's hair stand on end. Since I promised to beat you until your mother can't recognize you, then I will fulfill my promise. Zhuowen sneered and stepped forward. He punched and kicked Ying Qianghua's gigolo face. After a while, Ying Qianghua's originally white face was completely swollen at this time, like a pig's head. Ying Qianghua seemed to be numb and no longer struggled. Apparently, he had accepted his fate. Enough! Ying Xuelua suddenly shouted and clenched his fist, showing his anger at this time. However, he did not dare to make a move. After all, Guyu Tian was on the opposite side. Enough, I will return this guy to you. Zhuowen rubbed his fist and smiled brightly. Then, he kicked Ying Qianghua and sent him flying toward Ying Xuelua. At this time, many people in the audience were silent. Looking at Ing Qianghua, who was like a pig's head, everyone could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Chapter 171. Yin-Yang Double Condensation Technique Whoosh. Ing Xuelua leaped and easily caught Ing Qianghua, who was flying backward. Looking at the bruised Ing Qianghua in his arms, the veins on Ing Xuelua's forehead bulged. He coldly glanced at the youth in the arena, snorted, and returned to his seat on the high platform. At this moment, the entire arena was in an uproar. Everyone stared at the young man on the arena. The contempt and mockery in their eyes had disappeared without a trace and was replaced with reverence. They also knew that the youth in front of them was probably the strongest of the younger generation in Rattan Armor City. To be able to defeat a half-step Radiant King so easily, it meant that the youth's true strength had reached a strange and unfathomable level. Father, take revenge for me. You must kill that brat Zhuowen. On the high platform, Ing Qianghua, who was curled up in Ing Xuelua's arms, waved his hands weakly and said weakly. Ing Xuelua sighed. A trace of pity flashed across his face. He said, Qianhua, I can't take part in the fight for the quota. Now, only your sister is left. However, you also know that your sister's strength is only slightly stronger than yours. If she were to go against Zhuowen, I'm afraid that her strength would be insufficient. So there's only one way now, and that's to use the yin-yang dual condensation technique. Speaking of this, Ing Xuelua suddenly became silent. He just quietly stared at Ing Qianghua in his arms, waiting for the former's reply. Yin-yang double condensation technique? Although I was already aware of it when I practiced this secret method with my sister, I didn't expect that I would have to use this trump card in the competition for the quota. So. Ing Qianghua paused for a moment. He looked past Ing Xuelua and stared at Ing Hualan behind him. He forced a smile and said, So, sister, you must avenge me. Otherwise, my sacrifice will be in vain. Ing Hualan was taken aback. She looked at her brother in Ing Xuelua's arms with a complicated look in her eyes. Her heart was stirred. The yin-yang dual condensation technique was a very evil secret technique. This secret technique was divided into two parts, the yin condensation technique and the yang condensation technique. Both parts required two people to practice. There were almost no bottlenecks when cultivating this secret method, and the cultivation speed was also extremely fast. This was also why Ing Qianghua and Ing Hualan were able to reach the half-step King Zhao realm at such a young age. Actually, it wasn't because of their monstrous talents. It was because of the yin-yang dual condensation mantra that they were able to smoothly cultivate to the half-step King Zhao realm. However, any power came with a price. Since the yin-yang dual condensation technique could increase a cultivator's realm so quickly, the after-effects behind it were naturally not small. That was, while constantly increasing one's realm, one would have to endure a heart-gnawing pain every once in a while. In addition to the pain after a period of time, this secret method also imperceptibly changed the personality and behavior of the cultivator. Among them, Ing Qianghua was the best example. He cultivated the yin congealing secret art. Under the influence of the yin congealing secret art, Ing Qianghua's speech and behavior became more and more feminine. In Zhuowen's eyes, this was the behavior of a ladyboy. Ing Hualan was naturally the same. Looking at her thick arms and legs, one could tell that under the influence of the yang condensation technique, she could no longer be called a woman. In addition to the above several side effects, there was the most important one, which the two people who cultivated the yin-yang dual condensation technique had to experience. That was, the two people who cultivated the yin-yang dual condensation technique could only reach the half-step King Zhao realm. It was impossible for them to reach the human king realm, or even the earth king realm or higher. If they wanted to break through, there was only one way, and that was, just kill me. Only by obtaining the yuan power of the yin condensation technique in my body and combining it with the yuan power of the yang condensation technique in your body, will you be able to fuse yin and yang and finally step into the human king realm. Ying Qianghua's gaze was very calm as he stared at Ying Hualan in front of him and said with a faint smile. Little brother, don't worry. I will personally kill that arrogant brat Zhuowen for you. Ying Hualan lowered her head slightly. Soon after, she came to Ying Qianghua's side and squatted down. Her right hand formed a sword and pointed at the space between Ying Qianghua's eyebrows with lightning speed. Soon after, a ray of light suddenly burst out from between Ying Qianghua's eyebrows. This ray of light became even more vigorous and finally turned into a palm-sized white ball of light that quietly floated in Ying Hualan's palm. The moment this ball of light left Ying Qianghua's forehead, the former's body violently twitched. Soon after, his eyes widened and he stopped moving. The aura on his body gradually weakened and finally disappeared completely. Hualan. You don't have to be too sad. When you first practiced this secret method, you were already prepared for this day. This moment would have come sooner or later. So, don't let your brother's sacrifice be in vain. Looking at Ying Qianghua, who was no longer breathing in his arms, a trace of sadness flashed in the depths of Ying Xuelua's eyes. However, it was just a flash. He calmly said to Ying Hualan in front of him. Father, I know what to do. Ying Hualan gently stroked Ying Qianghua's hair. At this moment, her gaze became gentle. However, when she looked at the white ball of light in her palm, a trace of coldness appeared in her eyes again. Taking a deep breath, Ying Hualan gently squeezed her right hand. The ball of light in her palm suddenly burst and turned into countless white light spots. The strange thing was that these densely packed light spots were like iron powder attracted by a magnet. They fought to be the first to enter Ying Hualan's body, and as these light spots continued to enter her body, the aura in her body also grew at an astonishing speed. Boom! When this aura reached its peak, a thunderous sound suddenly burst out from Ying Hualan's body and echoed throughout the high platform. Two different auras of power suddenly emerged from Ying Hualan's body like swimming dragons. One was as hot as a rainbow, and the other was as cold as ice. The two extreme energies merged together in the void behind Ying Hualan. Brilliant light like cherry blossoms suddenly burst out. Immediately, the void behind Ying Hualan gradually formed a red and white wheel of yin and yang. It was like the rising sun in the morning. The intense noise and dazzling light immediately attracted the attention of everyone on and off the stage. When these gazes focused over, they were first stunned for a moment. When they recovered from their daze, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Is this the yin-yang wheel? Is someone about to break through to the human king stage at this moment? Look! It's on the high platform of the Yin sifting sect. It seems that Ying Hualan of the Yin sifting sect has broken through. What a coincidence! She actually broke through at this moment. If she succeeds in breaking through, there will be another change in this battle for the quota. When everyone confirmed that the strange phenomenon just now came from the Yin sifting sect, their faces were filled with astonishment. When they saw that the person who broke through was Ying Hualan, who had yet to make a move, the entire arena was in an uproar. Originally, after Zhuowen easily defeated Ying Qianghua, everyone thought that the final winner of this battle would be the city lord's mansion. However, Ying Hualan's unexpected breakthrough cast a layer of suspense over the outcome of this battle. She actually broke through at this moment. On the arena, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at the huge red and white wheel in the void, as well as Ying Hualan, who was floating in the air with her eyes slightly closed. On the high platform, the smile on Gu Yutian's face completely froze at this moment. Looking at the red and white wheel in the void, the corners of his eyes suddenly twitched, and a trace of horror involuntarily appeared in his eyes. This power? It seems to be the yin-yang dual condensation technique. On the high platform, the 9th Commandery Princess also noticed the phenomenon on Ying Hualan's side, and a trace of doubt appeared in her beautiful eyes. Behind her, Su Chang saw that the 9th Commandery Princess was puzzled, so he waved his folding fan and said eagerly, "Commandery Princess, did you also recognize it? Those two brats from the Yin sifting sect cultivate the yin-yang dual condensation art. It's said that this secret art was bestowed to the sifting sect's previous generation of disciples who made it into the top 1,000 in the Origin Chi Tower. So it was bestowed by our Marquis's mansion. No wonder it is so familiar. However, this secret technique has such a huge side effect, and yet there are still people practicing it. This is a little surprising. The 9th Commandery Princess nodded and said lightly. The forces in a small place like Rot 10 Armor City are all inexperienced. Even though the yin-yang dual condensation technique is considered trash in the Marquis's mansion, it is like a treasure in the eyes of the yin sifting sect. After all, our level is completely different from theirs. Su Chang gently waved his folding fan and glanced at the high platform where the yin sifting sect was located. His eyes flashed with disdain and contempt. Even the servants of the Marquis mansion would not practice such a trashy secret technique like the yin-yang dual condensation technique. Now that he saw the yin sifting sect taking it out like a treasure, he naturally felt disdain in his heart, and the arrogance in his heart became even stronger. From his point of view, Vine Armor City was merely a small and insignificant place. Even the Marquis of Baichuan's Marquis residence could be destroyed with a single order. With such a mindset, he felt even more disdain for the cultivators of Vine Armor City. However, this secret technique requires the sacrifice of a person. I'm afraid that the yuan power in Ing Qianghua's body has already been extracted just now. The leader of the yin sifting sect is quite bold. I wonder how Zhuowen will deal with Ing Hualan after she advances to the human king stage. The 9th Commandery Princess's beautiful eyes moved slightly and looked at the young figure in the arena. A faint smile bloomed at the corner of her mouth. This was the smile of a child who had found a new way to play. Hearing the 9th Commandery Princess mention Zhuowen's name again, Su Chang's eyes flashed with a trace of darkness. He sneered and said, although that kid defeated Ing Qianghua, he is now facing a human king stage cultivator. I'm afraid he will lose miserably in a while. He may even lose his life. Chapter 172. A violent collision boom. In the void, when the alternating red and white wheel rose to its highest point, it suddenly exploded, turning into a long stream of red and white that floated down like a ribbon. In the end, it landed on the surface of Ing Hualan's body and turned into a strange armor with red and white light flowing continuously, firmly adhering to the surface of her body. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura abruptly erupted from Ing Hualan's body. This aura was like a mountain as it violently poured over. The air seemed to have frozen because of it. Looking at Ing Hualan, who was clad in red and white armor, Ing Xuelua's cheeks flushed and his eyes blazed. He knew that Ing Hualan had successfully reached the human king realm. You've successfully advanced? Is that the human king armor unique to human king realm warriors? I really didn't expect Ing Hualan to advance to the human king realm at this juncture. I'm afraid that even Zhuowen would find it difficult to defeat Ing Hualan, who is already in the human king realm. Yeah. The gap between the mortal king realm and the half-step radiant king realm is like a chasm. Although it's only one level of difference, the difference in strength is like heaven and earth. Numerous gazes gathered on Ing Hualan, who was wearing red and white armor. An uproar involuntarily sounded. Creak. Guyu Tian clenched his fists tightly and looked at Ing Hualan with bulging eyes. He had not expected Ing Hualan to succeed in breaking through. Human King Realm Expert. Even if Zhuowen has a powerful trump card, it will not be easy for him to defeat a human king, Gu Xian said with a sigh. Gu Yu's beautiful eyes were filled with worry as she stared at the figure on the stage. Zhuowen. Hand over your life. Today, I will avenge my brother and kill you in the arena. A rough voice spread throughout the entire arena like a bolt from the blue, and then a figure suddenly fell into the arena like a meteor. Boom! A loud sound accompanied by a wave of air suddenly poured out in all directions with the arena as the center. The powerful force caused many warriors below the stage to involuntarily take a dozen steps back. When the dust that permeated the sky gradually scattered, a 10-mile large deep pit was formed on the arena. A strong figure slowly walked out from within the deep pit. Finally, he stopped 10 meters away from Zhuowen. His sharp eyes stared intently at the former. Zhuowen could even see an extremely deep murderous intent in the depths of Ying Hualan's eyes. Kill me? Then you should be prepared to be killed. This is my last advice to you. A powerful qi wave surged over. Zhuowen's body stood firmly on the arena like a spear as he spoke with a calm expression. When the two of them stood facing each other on the stage, a wave of fanaticism was set off below the stage. Everyone stared at the two figures on the stage with fiery gazes. They knew that the following battle would definitely be a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. At this moment, Lingju's eyes were still extremely cold as he stood at the edge of the arena. However, the corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. As the captain of the guards of the house of Marquis Qin, he could naturally tell that Ying Hualan had used the yin-yang double condensation technique to forcefully raise her cultivation. However, he was somewhat disdainful of Ying Hualan, who had used such a secret technique. In his opinion, this method of forcefully raising one's cultivation by relying on a secret technique had too many drawbacks. It was easy to leave an indelible hidden danger in the body, which would affect the advancement of one's cultivation in the future. However, what was worth pondering over was Zhuowen's current expression. In his opinion, a warrior of the human king realm should be able to make the young man in front of him waver. However, what surprised him was that the young man's face was still terrifyingly calm. It was as if even if Ying Hualan's cultivation had reached the human king realm, he still did not take her seriously. No wonder the 9th Commandery Princess cares so much about this young man. I'm afraid this young man is not as simple as he seems to be. After thinking for a while, Lingju glanced at the two people who were facing each other in the arena. Immediately, he shouted in a low voice, "If the two of you are ready, the battle will begin now. Let me make this clear first. If any party wins this battle, that party will be able to obtain the remaining 2 spots." As soon as Lingju finished speaking, it immediately caused everyone below the stage to cheer. Amidst the cheers, Ying Hualan sneered. Her strong legs were like extremely elastic springs. She suddenly stomped on the ground. Her huge body was like a small mountain as she rushed towards Zhuowen. Bang! 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 As Ying Hualan rushed over, the air seemed to be torn apart. It was as if the air had turned into firecrackers, constantly exploding. Thump! Thump! Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He suddenly staggered and his body turned into an arc on the spot. Bang! Bang! The moment Zhuowen's body tilted, the space in front of him exploded. Ying Hualan's fist, which was as thick as a thigh, smashed towards him like a huge rock. Boom! The powerful force formed a ring-shaped ripple in the air. The ring-shaped ripple smashed into the ground through the fist, creating a basin-sized hole in the ground. Seeing that her attack had missed, a strange smile flashed across Ying Hualan's expressionless face. Zhuowen's heart shivered when he saw this. Soon after, he saw Ying Hualan's fist, which had missed, suddenly change direction in midair. Soon after, her fist turned into a claw in front of Zhuowen's eyes. Invisible yuan power transformed into a half-meter-long claw. Zhuowen, go and die. Ying Hualan's expression suddenly turned sinister. Swoosh! The sharp claw pierced through the air and suddenly shot towards Zhuowen's throat. A sharp cold light flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. The cold light of the sharp claw rapidly enlarged in Zhuowen's eyes. However, just as the sharp claw was about to pierce Zhuowen's throat, a blue light flashed. Soon after, the ice saint rune on Zhuowen's right hand flashed and an icy blue ice crystal condensed at his throat. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out the instant they made contact. Sparks flew and ripples visible to the naked eye spread out from the ice crystal at his throat. Heh. Interesting. When she saw that her unexpected sharp claw had been blocked, the corners of Ying Hualan's mouth curled slightly. Not only did she not reveal a disappointed expression, the sinister look on her face became even denser. She sneered, "My mysterious condensing claw is not so easy to block." When Ing Hualan's words left her mouth, the sharp claw that had landed on the ice crystal suddenly flashed with a gray light. When Zhuowen saw this, his pupils shrunk slightly. An uneasy feeling surged in his heart as his figure rapidly retreated. Pop! Just as Zhuowen's figure was about to explosively retreat, Ing Hualan's two fingers swiftly shot out like a spear, instantly piercing through the hard ice crystal. Following which, two grayish-strength qis quickly caught up to Zhuowen like lightning, landing on his shoulders. Pop! The clothes on Zhuowen's shoulders were torn, and two bloody holes appeared. Traces of fresh blood immediately flowed out, dyeing the clothes on Zhuowen's chest red. Whoosh! The exchange in the arena was completed in a flash. Therefore, when the crowd saw that Zhuowen, who had just displayed his invincible might, had been injured, an uproar spread out. As expected of a human king stage practitioner. She actually injured Zhuowen with a single move. Looks like that brat doesn't have any chance of winning even when facing a human king stage practitioner. That's right. Looks like this brat can only stop here. However, this brat can also be considered amazing. Being able to defeat a half-step bright king stage practitioner already shows his strength. Now that he has lost to a human king stage practitioner, it's not considered shameful. In the seats of the city lord's mansion, the faces of Gu Yutian, Gu Yu, and Gu Xian instantly changed. They did not expect that Zhuowen would be injured in the first exchange. This was something that none of them had expected. Quite an interesting attack. Looks like a human king stage practitioner is indeed very strong. Looking at the two bloody holes on his shoulders, Zhuowen shrugged. There was no surprise on his face. Instead, a trace of a smile appeared on his face. As he smiled, the soul skill immortal essence in his body took effect. Under this effect, the bloody holes on his shoulders were slowly healing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Ing Hualan's eyes narrowed. Soon after, she sneered and said, "Your recovery ability is quite strong. However, I will beat you until you don't even have the chance to recover later." Zhuowen had a solemn expression on his face as he looked at Ing Hualan, who was sneering in front of him. Although he had once relied on the Ice Saint Talisman to kill Wang Yuanqing and the other initial human king realm martial artists, he had never been able to do so. However, at that time, Wang Yuanqing had suffered extremely serious internal injuries in the battle with Zhuo Xiangding. His strength was even less than 10%. Therefore, Zhuowen was able to rely on the power of the holy ice symbol to kill Wang Yuanqing. However, Ing Hualan in front of him now was an initial human king stage practitioner without any injuries. Her strength was much stronger than Wang Yuanqing's when he was seriously injured. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to defeat Ing Hualan, he would have to use the power of the holy ice flame symbol. You are indeed a human king stage practitioner. It seems that if I want to defeat you, the previous method won't work. Perhaps only that move can defeat you. Facing the powerful and terrifying Ing Hualan in front of him, Zhuowen did not show any signs of weakness. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his face as he spoke calmly. That move. Looking at the sudden smile on the young man's face, Ing Hualan suddenly felt uneasy. The source of this uneasiness was the young man in front of her, who was much weaker than her. Just as Ing Hualan was pondering over Zhuowen's words, Zhuowen had already taken out dozens of Yang Yuan stones from his storage bag. Soon after, he gently squeezed his left hand. A blazing pillar of fire immediately shot up into the sky from the Yang Yuan stones that he had crushed. At the same time, the young man gently waved his right hand. Immediately, a cold and oppressive void armor appeared on the surface of his body. Waves of icy blue cold air continuously condensed on his right hand from the void armor. This guy. What is he doing? Looking at the strange young man in front of her, Ing Hualan's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. However, when Zhuowen brought out the two extreme energies of ice and fire, the expressions of some of the forces below the stage suddenly changed. Soon after, a strange scene suddenly occurred below the stage. That was, about half of the forces below the stage actually tacitly retreated continuously. They only stopped when they had retreated 100 meters away and stopped to look at the stage. Some of the forces who did not know what was going on heard some of the people from the retreating forces discussing, "Damn it, is young Master Zhuowen going to use that move? The power of that move can raise the entire Wang family to the ground. We should quickly retreat." Chapter 173. Rock splitting and mountain moving formula. The abnormal behavior of the forces under the platform immediately attracted the attention of many people on the platform. Among them, the 9th Commandery Princess, who was sitting at the top of the platform, also noticed the abnormality under the platform. The 9th Princess looked at the strange behavior of many forces below the stage. She turned her beautiful eyes and looked at the figure on the stage. When she saw the figure, the 9th Princess was stunned. A trace of surprise slowly appeared on her beautiful face. On the stage, the young man held a blazing hot fire pillar in one hand and an extremely cold qi in the other. Immediately, under everyone's gazes, his two hands quietly came together. The blazing hot fire pillar and the extremely cold qi also merged together. Sizzle. A soft sound slowly rose. Immediately, some 5-colored sparks shot out from the young man's hands like scattered shooting stars. They drew a rather dazzling parabola on the quiet arena. "This is," on the city lord's seat, Gu Tian suddenly stood up. As he looked at the dazzling 5-colored light that was being emitted from Zhuowen's hands, a tinge of horror surfaced in his eyes. He could feel that the two extremely ordinary ice and fire energies, under the young man's matchmaking, had actually become increasingly powerful at an extremely terrifying speed. "City Governor, it is said that when the Zhuo family, the Wang family, and the Qin family were fighting, a 5-colored energy pillar appeared. The power of the energy pillar was like a natural disaster, razing the Wang family mansion to the ground. At the same time, it killed Lu Qingshang, who was in the profound human king realm. According to the information obtained by the spies at that time, that huge energy pillar was created by young Master Zhuowen using the energy of ice and fire." Behind Gu Tian, a subordinate quietly whispered into Gu Tian's ear. "Are you saying that what Zhuowen is using right now is very likely the same move that raised the Wang clan to the ground?" Gu Tian's hands trembled as his pupils abruptly constricted. "I'm afraid so. That move should be young Master Zhuowen's final trump card. Therefore, City Lord still needs to pay attention to it. If it's too powerful, City Lord still needs to make more preparations." The person behind him replied respectfully. When they heard the conversation between Gu Tian and Gu Xian and Gu Yu, who were standing beside them, had their mouths wide open. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The two of them shifted their gazes and looked at the young man in the arena again. They suddenly felt that this young man, who was younger than them, actually had so many trump cards. Not only did he eliminate the powerful and terrifying Ying Qianghua in one move, but he also showed powerful trump cards when facing a human king. Is he really a 16-year-old young man? Why is it that even some of the experts of the older generation can only admit defeat with the strength he has shown? Gu Xian's eyelids drooped slightly as he said with a bitter smile. At this moment, there was no longer any arrogance on his face. Instead, it was replaced by a bitter and self-deprecating expression. Now, he finally realized how big the gap between him and Zhuowen was. After repeated experiments and the fact that the ice and fire energy in his hand was only at the ordinary level, Zhuowen did not encounter too many obstacles in the process of fusing the ice and fire energy. It was almost a matter of time before the ice and fire energy was fused together. Boom! A 5-colored light suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's hands. Immediately, the ice and fire created by the holy symbol of ice and fire was created. A strange gray ball with 5 colors circulating in it gradually appeared in the young man's palm. Looking at the gray ball in the young man's hand, Ying Hualan's pupils suddenly shrank. An ominous premonition emerged in her heart. She faintly felt that the power contained in the gray ball in the young man's hand was absolutely terrifying. What kind of move is this? Damn it, why is this brat so strange? He actually has so many tricks up his sleeves. However, I can't let this brat continue to attack. Otherwise, who knows what other trump cards he has. The ominous premonition in her heart grew even stronger. Ying Hualan knew that she could not just stand by and watch the show. She had to make the first move to gain the upper hand. Thinking of this, Ying Hualan's face suddenly became ferocious. She stomped her foot on the ground and a powerful force suddenly spread from her foot to the ground. Then, a violent vibration suddenly rose from the arena. Crack! Under the vibration of this force, the surface of the bluestone arena actually began to crack. Traces of cracks like a spider web slowly spread out on the surface of the arena. Rock splitting and mountain moving art. A low and deep roar was slowly emitted from Ying Hualan's throat. Soon after, her thigh-like arms were clenched into fists as they ferociously smashed towards the ground. Rumble. An even more powerful vibration suddenly spread out from the arena and below the arena. Soon after, the huge arena with a radius of 100 miles actually shattered under the vibration. Countless dust particles were like a fog that covered the entire arena. A huge black shadow suddenly rose from the ground amidst the dust. Its huge size actually covered the entire empty space in its shadow. When the dust gradually scattered, a large earthen yellow ball that was several thousand feet in size was quietly suspended in the air. Moreover, the thing that caused people to click their tongues in amazement was that this strange huge ball seemed to have a great attractive force. It was actually continuously absorbing countless rocks and soil from the ground to strengthen its own size. Under the attraction force of the round ball, the arena on the empty space actually disappeared into thin air. There was even a huge deep hole formed in the arena. Clearly, this was the effect of the round ball's attraction force. Rock splitting and mountain moving art. This should be the Yin sifting sect's most powerful armor technique. I heard that when cultivated to the peak, it can suck out thousands of feet of mountains and merge them into a huge round ball. From there, it has the power to move mountains and split rocks. I wonder if Zhuowen can withstand Ying Hualan's attack. In the city lord's mansion's seating area, Gu Tian suddenly stood up and said with a worried expression. Zhuowen, you were able to force me to use the rock-splitting and mountain-moving art. Even if you die, you should be proud of yourself. With my current cultivation as a sovereign personage, I have already acknowledged your strength by using my ultimate technique. However, even if you have strength that far surpasses your cultivation, you will still die in the end because the final victor will be me. Ying Hualan's eyes narrowed slightly as she stared at the figure of the young man not far away. She leaped up and stood on the yellow ball. She looked down at the young man below and said coldly. Is that so? Since you are so confident, then come and defeat me. Zhuowen said with a cold smile as he straightened his back and faced the huge round ball in the air without the slightest fear. At this juncture, you are still so stubborn. In that case, I won't hold back. Under my rock-splitting and mountain-moving art, even a human king realm warrior won't be a match for me. Moreover, your strength hasn't reached the human king realm, so you can die now. Ying Hualan stood on the round ball with her arms crossed in front of her chest. The killing intent in her eyes suddenly burst forth. The two fingers of her right hand suddenly hooked, and the several hundred feet huge round ball under her feet shot towards the tiny figure below like a meteorite. Endless waves of air mixed with the sound of air exploding constantly rose in the open space. In the air, circular ripples caused by the huge round ball constantly spread in all directions. The powerful force even seemed to distort the space at this moment. Seeing the huge round ball in the air getting closer and closer, countless figures below the arena revealed a horrified expression. Immediately, they began to flee in the direction away from the arena in a panic. They could feel the smell of death coming from the huge round ball in the air. They knew that if they didn't take any measures, they would probably die here. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly as a solemn expression appeared on his face. He could feel the killing intent in Yinghualan's move. The power of such a terrifying earth ball was absolutely unimaginable. Let's try the power of this ice-fire explosion. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly swung at the huge round ball in the air. The ice-fire explosion in his palm was suffused with a colorful brilliance. It was like a dazzling meteor that streaked across the air and suddenly rushed towards the huge round ball. The palm-sized ice fireball formed a sharp contrast with the gigantic sphere in the sky. Under the visual impact of the extremely large and extremely small spheres, the two strange spheres fiercely collided with each other in front of everyone's gazes. Rumble. The destructive energy suddenly spread out from the empty space. At this moment, waves of ripples appeared in the empty space. The invisible ripples were like sharp blades that suddenly swept past a hill not far away. With a loud sound like a muffled thunder, the hill suddenly collapsed and was razed to the ground. An enormous shockwave suddenly spread out in all directions. On the tall platform, countless factions unleashed their yuan power with all their might, forming an invisible barrier in front of them. With this, they blocked the energy shockwave that was transmitted over. Wherever the energy aftershock passed, the barrier formed on the high platform suddenly caved in, as if it was unable to bear the impact. Fortunately, under the efforts of everyone, the barrier was not broken by the energy aftershock. Looking at the barrier that blocked the energy aftershock, Guyu Tian sighed softly. At the same time, his heart was filled with horror. He did not expect that just energy alone could reach such a level. The power created by these two people was too abnormal. So powerful. Gu Xian and Gu Yu were already stunned. This was the first time they had seen such destructive power. It was hard for them to imagine that this kind of power was created by two peers who were about the same age as them. Ha! Zhuowen, this move of yours is indeed powerful. However, I have already said that my rock-splitting mountain-moving art is not that easy to break. A wild and arrogant laughter was suddenly emitted from the empty ground. Immediately, everyone's gazes gathered over, only to see the dust slowly scattering. Although there were cracks on the surface of the huge round ball, it did not show any signs of collapsing. Yinghualan stood on the round ball, laughing out loud in a wild and arrogant manner. Since one is not enough, how about two? How about three? A calm voice slowly rang out. Soon after, under the stage that had already turned into ruins, a young man stood quietly below, looking up at the sky. In his hands, there were two dazzling ice-fire explosions. At this moment, the dazzling colors were actually emitting a dazzling brilliance. Chapter 174. Yingxuelua's killing intent. Although Yinghualan was laughing maniacally on the surface, her heart was in turmoil. On the surface, it looked like her giant sphere was not damaged at all. However, she was very clear that in the violent collision just now, most of the giant sphere's power had already been destroyed. She knew that if Zhuowen's ice-fire ball had come at her again, her rock-splitting mountain-moving art would have been broken immediately. How is that possible? How can this fellow still use such a powerful technique? Moreover, he has created two of them in one go. At this moment, Yinghualan's expression became abnormally ugly. She finally realized that she seemed to have underestimated the brat in front of her. Even though she had already advanced to the human king realm, the young man in front of her was still so calm, and the trump cards he displayed were getting more and more abnormal. On the high platform, Yingxuelua also saw the two ice fireballs in Zhuowen's hands. The corner of his eyes twitched, and he could not help but gasp. He muttered to himself, this boy can still use such a powerful move. Can he, who is only at the half-step yang realm, use such a move without limit? On the other side, Guyu Tian's face could not help but twitch. Previously, he had clearly felt the power of Zhuowen's ice fire. That kind of power caused even him to be somewhat fearful. However, now that he had created two of them at once, if they were to explode at the same time, who knew how terrifying the aftershock would be? Just as everyone fell into silence, a crazed look flashed across Zhuo Wen's eyes. This was the first time he had tried to condense two ice fireballs. Although he was still using common grade ice and fire energy, the backlash during the process was still somewhat heavy. At this moment, Zhuo Wen's arms were stained with cherry-red blood and his face was as pale as snow. However, the corners of his mouth revealed a maniacal smile. Ying Hualan, take this properly. This is a feast that I have specially prepared for you. With a loud roar, Zhuo Wen threw both of his hands. Two five-colored ice fireballs intertwined in the air and formed two gorgeous arcs. They were like two meteors chasing each other. Finally, they formed a spiral arc in the air and violently swept towards the giant sphere. Buzz! Silence. Absolute silence filled everyone's ears. The only sound was the faint buzzing sound that constantly rang in their ears. It was like a mosquito constantly flapping its wings beside their ears. This was the temporary deafness caused by the loud noise. Only a loud noise that was as loud as the sky and earth could cause this phenomenon of countless buzzing sounds in one's ears. The blazing white light had already filled everyone's line of sight. It was so dazzling that everyone could not help but squint their eyes. Even if they tried their best to squint their eyes, all they could see was a vast expanse of whiteness. This sudden loss of five senses lasted for a while. Finally, the buzzing sound in everyone's ears came to an abrupt end. What replaced it was the clear sound of an intense explosion. The instant everyone's senses recovered, all of their gazes converged on the empty space above them. They could see that there was actually a huge, irregular white ball of light quietly suspended in the air. The white ball of light was like a constantly beating heart. It expanded in all directions without any pattern. Muffled sounds also rang out from this irregular ball of light. It was as if there were countless explosions occurring within the ball of light. Bang! 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 3 muffled thunder-like sounds suddenly rang out. Soon after, the white ball of light expanded at a terrifying speed. When it reached its peak, rumble. The white ball of light exploded with a loud bang, and the powerful explosion tore a black hole in the void. Even the surrounding space was distorted. Endless waves of air also suddenly rose. Soon after, they spread out in all directions. As the waves of air spread out, pieces of debris emitting sparks suddenly fell from the sky like rain. It was as if countless amounts of magma had sputtered out from a volcanic eruption. Everyone knew that these earth fragments that carried sparks were actually the countless fragments that were produced after the giant sphere formed by the rock-splitting and mountain-moving art had been completely disintegrated. As the pieces of sparks fell like rain, a black figure cut through the empty space and suddenly fell towards the empty space below that had already turned into ruins. Boom! The black figure suddenly smashed into the ground, smashing a deep hole in the ground. Through the misty dust, everyone could faintly see that the black figure was lying on his back in the deep hole. His body was constantly twitching. Dang dang dang. At this moment, the crisp sound of footsteps also rang out in the somewhat silent ruins, swoosh swoosh. The instant the footsteps rang out, countless gazes turned to the other side and saw a tall figure slowly walking over from the other side. When a delicate and handsome face slowly appeared in everyone's eyes, the entire empty space became extremely quiet, even a little deathly still. This was because the person standing in front of them was not Ying Hualan, whose cultivation had already reached the human king stage, but the delicate and handsome face of Zhuowen. Creak. On the city lord's seat, Gu Tian fiercely clenched his fists, causing crackling sounds to ring out. At this moment, his pupils had shrunk to the size of needles, and his lips could not help but tremble as he muttered, "Zhuo Wen, he won in the end, our city lord's mansion has obtained the final victory." At this moment, Gu Tian's heart was more emotional than anyone else. In the previous competition for the slots, their city lord mansion had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Yin sifting sect. Therefore, a layer of stain had been smeared on their city lord mansion's reputation. It was also because of their defeat in the previous competition that the Yin sifting sect's influence rapidly expanded. In a short period of time, they had caught up with the city lord mansion. Because of this, the Yin-sifting sect became even more arrogant and did not put the city lord mansion in their eyes at all. Guyu Tian was very clear that if the city lord mansion did not obtain a slot this time, it was very likely that their influence would be overtaken by the Yin-sifting sect. With the Yin-sifting sect's ambition, it would be very difficult for them to obediently submit to the city lord mansion. Therefore, to Guyu Tian, this battle was not just a competition for the slots. It was also a battle for the city lord mansion to regain their prestige and the city lord mansion's strength. If they won, then the city lord mansion would be able to consolidate their original position. If they lost, then the city lord mansion would very likely lose their prestige and Rattan Armor City might even fall into chaos because of this. After understanding the extraordinary significance of this battle, Guyu Tian knew how great Zhuowen's contribution this time was. Impossible. How can our Yin-sifting sect lose? I don't believe it. It must be Zhuowen playing tricks in the dark. Yes, it must be him playing tricks. An explosive roar suddenly rang out in the silent open space. Immediately after, an extremely powerful aura, under everyone's astonished gazes, suddenly swept towards the figure standing in the middle of the ruins. Powerful yuan power swept out like an endless torrential wave. At this moment, Yingshuelua's eyes were scarlet red. He mercilessly pressed his palms towards Zhuowen's head. The Yin-sifting sect had suffered a great loss this time. 2 warriors who had reached the half-step King Zhao realm were defeated in the competition for the slots. Moreover, they were both defeated by the same person. For this competition, Yingshuelua could be said to be very well prepared. Not only did he bring his 2 half-step King Zhao realm sons and daughters, but he also decisively sacrificed his son's life to forcibly raise Yinghualan's cultivation to the human king realm in order to win this competition. However, even though Yinghualan's cultivation had reached the human king realm, she was still defeated in the end. And the person who defeated her was a young man who was not even 16 years old. Yingshuelua's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was above Zhuowen. Even Guyu Tian did not expect Yingshuelua to be so shameless as to kill Zhuowen. Yingshuelua, how dare you kill Zhuowen? If you kill him, your Yin-sifting sect can only wait for the bloody revenge of the city lord mansion. Guyu Tian shouted. He stomped his foot and flew straight toward the open space. Unfortunately, he was too far away from Zhuowen. Yingshuelua had already arrived above Zhuowen's head. It was too late to stop him now. Yingshuelua's sudden attack was also unexpected. It immediately caused an uproar under the stage. Many people cursed Yingshuelua for being despicable and shameless. Yingshuelua no longer cared about anything else. His son and daughter, whom he valued the most, had died at Zhuowen's hands. The hatred for his son's death had completely filled his mind, causing him to lose all reason. On the open space, looking at Yingshuelua who was getting closer and closer, Zhuowen's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He did not expect Yingshuelua to attack at this time. This was simply against the rules of the competition. A strong pressure, like a mountain, suddenly pressed down on Zhuowen's body. Under this huge pressure, even Zhuowen could not help but breathe quickly. His whole body was extremely heavy, as if it was filled with lead. Boy, you killed my children and destroyed the foundation of my Yin-sifting sect. Now, I'll kill you. Yingshuelua suddenly stepped on the air. His eyes were extremely red, like blood drops. At this time, his face was full of madness. Bang! Yingshuelua's right palm suddenly pressed down. A huge Yuanli palm was like a mountain, suddenly pressing down on Zhuowen's head. Feeling the Yuanli palm above his head getting closer and closer, Zhuowen smelled the smell of death. The Yuanli palm above his head was an all-out attack of a complete human king realm warrior. Even though Zhuowen had a lot of trump cards, he had consumed too much of his Yuanli in the battle with Yinghualan. Coupled with the pressure of Yingshuelua's aura, Zhuowen could not resist at all. Am I going to die? Murmuring to himself, Zhuowen suddenly calmed down strangely. Looking at the Yuanli palm above him, Zhuowen's eyes were blurred at this moment, as if he had lost his mind. This boy is finished. Even if Zhuowen is incredible, it is unlikely that he can withstand the all-out attack of a complete human king realm warrior. Behind the 9th Commandery Princess, Su Chang gloated. However, the 9th Commandery Princess frowned. She did not expect this to happen in the end. Ying Xuelua's unauthorized action made her very unhappy. I just found a fun toy, but it's going to disappear so soon. What a pity. The 9th Commandery Princess shook her head slightly as she combed her hair in front of her forehead. Chapter 175. Enter the state of metaphysics again. The ferocious look on Ying Xueluo's face intensified as he looked at the young man who seemed to be in a daze. He knew that the young man in front of him would definitely die under his all-out attack. Boom! Just as Ying Xueluo's attack was about to hit Zhuowen, a huge barrier suddenly appeared on the surface of Zhuowen's body. Ying Xueluo was shocked to find that the pneuma around Zhuowen's body was boiling like boiling water. This is the law of heaven and earth? The smile on Ying Xueluo's face froze. His pupils shrank to the size of needles as he stared at the young man with his eyes closed. Rumble. As Ying Xueluo muttered to himself, the inexplicable barrier in front of Zhuowen suddenly exploded. Immediately, Ying Xueluo felt a mountain-like recoil from the barrier in front of him. This energy was extremely powerful, and it had already surpassed the limits of what a human king realm martial artist could withstand. Therefore, the moment Ying Xueluo felt the recoil from the barrier, he retreated vigilantly. However, to his horror, this force was like a maggot in his bones, firmly sticking to him. Ying Xueluo had no choice but to raise his palm to block the attack. Endless primordial force surged out of his body and eventually formed a golden spear. Ying Xueluo gripped the spear with his right hand and moved his 5 fingers. He exerted his strength, and the golden spear began to spin under the influence of his powerful fingertips. Then, like a poisonous dragon, it rushed toward the oncoming power of the law. Kacha! A soft sound rang out. Ying Xueluo was shocked to find that his golden spear, which had been formed by Yuanli, had crumbled like a piece of paper in the face of the power of the laws. The powerful force was like a whip as it lashed out at Ying Xueluo's chest. Puchi! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Ying Xueluo's mouth. Soon after, his sturdy body flew backwards like a withered leaf. As he flew backwards, blood continued to spurt out from his mouth. All this happened in a split second. Everyone was shaking their heads and sighing as they thought that Zhuowen was about to be killed by Ying Xueluo. Now, the scene of Ying Xueluo's flying figure silenced the crowd. The one who flew backward is Ying Xueluo. What just happened? Ying Xueluo was attacking Zhuowen with all his strength. Why is he flying backward and vomiting blood? When everyone's gazes gathered on the figure that was flying backwards and vomiting blood, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their gazes also became somewhat dull at this moment. Boom! Ying Xueluo fell from a ruin far away from the open space, stirring up a cloud of dust as he coughed. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground immediately woke everyone up. When they confirmed that the figure that was flying backward was indeed Ying Xueluo, the dullness in their eyes changed dramatically, turning into astonishment and disbelief. Guyue Tian, who was trying his best to rush over, also saw Ying Xueluo flying backwards. The worry and anxiety on his face froze at this moment, and his mouth was slightly agape. Ying Xueluo was obviously seriously injured. Could it be that the one who injured Ying Xueluo was Zhuowen, who was standing in the middle of the open space? Guyue Tian moved his stiff neck slightly and looked at the young figure in the ruins. When he saw that Zhuowen was still standing in the open space with his eyes closed as if he was asleep, he was stunned and the corners of his mouth twitched. Zhuowen didn't seem to have the ability to attack at all. Could it be that Ying Xueluo was bewitched? However, what happened next completely dispelled the doubts in Guyue Tian's heart. Boom! A muffled sound suddenly rang out. Immediately, the yuan qi in the surroundings of the open space began to boil like boiling water. Following which, everyone was surprised to discover that the yuan qi in the surroundings seemed to have been sucked dry as it suddenly rushed towards a direction. That direction was where Zhuowen was standing. At this time, Zhuowen's body was covered with a layer of dazzling white light. This layer of white light was like a cocoon, attached to Zhuowen's body, and a strange energy was constantly dissipating. As the layer of white light continued to converge on Zhuowen's body, a ripple akin to the might of the heavens abruptly spread out in all directions with Zhuowen as the center. Under this fluctuation, many of the weaker martial warriors below the stage couldn't help but kneel on the ground, their foreheads covered in cold sweat. This wave is the power of the law of heaven and earth. This guy has entered the mysterious comprehending state. Lingju had already come to the 9th commandery princess's side when Zhuowen and Ning Hualan were fighting. At this time, he was staring at the young man below with his eyes slightly closed and turned pale with fright. The 9th commandery princess and Su Chang beside him were shocked and they heard Lingju's words. They both looked at the figure below. Naturally, they knew very well about the mysterious comprehending state. The mysterious comprehending state was a mysterious state. Once a warrior entered this state, he would be able to trigger the law of heaven and earth. Under the effect of the law of heaven and earth, the warrior's comprehension ability and the growth of his origin power would be thousands of times faster than usual. It could be said that the mysterious comprehending state was a privilege given to warriors by the law of heaven and earth. There were almost countless benefits in it, so as long as one was a warrior, he or she would want to enter this mysterious state. However, it was not that easy to enter the mysterious comprehending state. It was almost impossible to enter this state if one did not have the chance to enter it by chance or if one was extremely talented. According to the records of the Qing Xian Empire, as long as a warrior could enter the mysterious comprehending state, his or her future would be limitless if he or she did not die accidentally. This kind of warrior was the target of all the big forces. After all, it was not a loss to invest in a warrior who could be a peerless master in the future. This guy is really giving me more and more surprises. He can enter the mysterious comprehending state at this juncture. This guy's talent is probably extraordinary. The 9th commandery princess's beautiful eyes sparkled as she murmured. At this time, the arrogance on Su Chang's face gradually disappeared. After all, warriors who could enter the mysterious comprehending state were people that even the House of Marquis of Baichuan would try their best to recruit. Therefore, his attitude towards Zhuowen had changed from disdain at the beginning to a little bit of respect. I really did not expect that in such a small place like Rattan Armor City, there would be a warrior who could enter the mysterious comprehending state. Since this person could enter the mysterious comprehending state for the first time, there is a possibility that he could enter the mysterious comprehending state for the second time. Therefore, although Zhuowen's strength is still too weak, if he continues to develop, it is only a matter of time before he becomes a master. Lingju stroked his beard as the shock on his face faded away. He said with a complicated look in his eyes. Then this guy can't be let go of. With such talent, entering the House of Marquis Qin is the best choice for him. After all, the House of Marquis Qin is the most powerful force in the entire Muqin County. Otherwise, his talent would be wasted. The 9th commandery princess's beautiful eyes sparkled slightly as the corners of her mouth twitched, revealing a pair of cute little canine teeth. She smiled and said, "Princess, are you trying to recruit him into the House of Marquis Qin? But this guy just rejected your invitation a few days ago. I'm afraid that if you invite him again, he will not accept it." Su Chang's face suddenly darkened as he said with some jealousy. Every time he saw the 9th commandery princess showing interest in Zhuowen, he always felt a little uncomfortable. Hee. The reason why this guy rejected me last time was that he did not know how many resources the House of Marquis Qin had and how powerful it was. Most importantly, I did not offer him enough to tempt him. If the benefits were to a certain extent, even a clay figurine would be tempted. Moreover, Zhuowen is not a clay figurine. A trace of slyness flashed across the ninth commandery princess's eyes as she smiled sweetly. Looking at the ninth commandery princess who was smiling sweetly, Su Chang could not help but show a trace of infatuation. In the depth of his eyes, there was an inexplicable feeling constantly surging. Boom! Just as the ninth commandery princess and the others were talking, the pneuma in the open space had turned into streaks of white light and wrapped Zhuowen's whole body layer by layer. Finally, a giant cocoon was formed. The cocoon was milky white, and streaks of strange energy were constantly emitting from it. Many warriors who wanted to get close to it had to retreat under the force of this energy. Guyu Tian looked at the giant cocoon floating in the open space with a complicated expression on his face. He vaguely guessed the state of Zhuowen at this time. Although it was a little hard to believe, he knew that his guess was probably right. The mysterious realm. I really did not expect that Zhuowen could enter such a mysterious realm. However, since Zhuowen is fine, then I can be at ease. But I won't letting Shuelua off so easily. Guyu Tian shifted his gaze to another part of the ruins. There was a deep pit, and in it, he could vaguely see a struggling figure. Shuelua, you broke the rules of the competition for places for no reason, and you even intended to attack the contestants. You have committed a capital crime. Now, as the governor of Rotten Armor City, I declare that you deserve to die. As his words fell, Guyu Tian's gaze turned even colder. The instant his last word fell, Guyu Tian's feet fiercely stomped on the ground. His entire body was like a shooting star as he ferociously shot towards the deep pit. I really did not expect that I, Shuelua, would be defeated by a junior. However, this old man has already remembered today's grudge in his heart. As long as I am alive, you will wait for my revenge. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.